The guy stood right in front of some huge monster. He was truly reborn. The guy couldn't believe that he had turned into a fish. Realizing what was happening, he became a small carp swimming in unknown waters. Underwater, he was surrounded by mortal danger from various predators. Evolution after absorption should not have happened so strangely in this mysterious world. He received a magical notification that the necessary conditions for evolution had been created, whether he wanted to evolve right now. But he was in deep confusion, as if he had grown physically, feeling much stronger than before. The guy seriously considered whether he should throw down a desperate challenge to this huge mutant hippopotamus. He immediately used the scale's defensive enhancement for his own safety. In the ancient city of Linten, a confused young man had no idea what was happening around him. At that very terrible moment, the frightened residents could observe the sudden appearance of some monstrous monster and a lot of destructive fire throughout the historic city. A frightened man loudly asked what it was, and a frightened girl screamed shrilly that it was a real monster. People were screaming in panic that they needed to run away as quickly as possible from the impending danger. Lin Hao simply sat motionless on the wooden bench, carefully observing all the chaotic events that were happening. Suddenly, an unprecedented catastrophe befell the peaceful city. Imminent death and boundless despair quickly spread among the innocent people. Lin Hao looked at all the terrible things happening around him with indescribable horror. The deadly gaze from the abyss spared absolutely no one from the inhabitants. The guy clearly understood that he could not die here and now. Today he was finally supposed to see his beloved girl after 3 long years of separation. Suddenly there was a deafening, powerful explosion, sweeping away everything in its path. They had agreed with the girl in advance to definitely meet. He still had so many important things to ask her. But apparently cruel fate had other plans for the unfortunate guy. There was absolutely nothing left of his physical body after the explosion. The guy realized with horror that it looked like he would die tragically right here. After this realization, he helplessly began to fall into the deep lake. Apparently, he is not destined to see his beloved again in this life. Many years have passed since the mysterious aliens began their quiet, ominous invasion of the Earth. And at first, distrustful people wrote off these strange events as empty rumors, until one day, a terrible catastrophe unexpectedly befell them. In 1934, a huge, scaly dragon suddenly fell from the high sky into the blue sea of the northern city of Dongchuan, violently throwing fishing boats onto the rocky shore. And the next day, the giant body of the dragon mysteriously and inexplicably disappeared without a trace. In 1947, a terrifying monster resembling a huge, aggressive crustacean was first spotted in the western sea of Malago. Many witnesses saw it in horror, and it mercilessly took the lives of 15 innocent people. In 2020, a giant monstrous monster was spotted in the southeastern Lungo district against the backdrop of an ominous blood moon in the night sky. But the next day, they mysteriously disappeared, as if they had never been there, and the authorities cynically attributed the numerous casualties to accidents. The corrupt authorities persistently convinced the frightened population that everything was completely normal. But then another deadly incident happened. The ancient beautiful city of Linten was completely destroyed in just one night. Shocking drone footage clearly showed that there were only destroyed ruins left. People urgently needed to leave immediately. Such terrible incidents have become too common everywhere. If they just sit passively and pray uselessly, it will not help to save themselves in any way. The protagonist slowly began to open his clouded eyes, and was surprised to realize that it was very noisy outside from the seething water. He had absolutely no idea where he was now, and noticed with horror that instead of his usual human hands he had fish fins. The stunned guy desperately tried to understand what the hell was happening to him. The realization deeply shocked his tortured mind. He had actually turned into a real fish. It seemed absolutely impossible and unreal. On the muddy bottom, he suddenly saw something very similar to a cloudy mirror among the algae. The reflection clearly showed his new appearance. Now he is just a small, defenseless carp. Suddenly, the surrounding fish swam around him in fear and began to quickly scatter in different directions from the approaching danger. He was painfully perplexed. Didn't he die in the city? Because he clearly remembers that he saw that huge, deadly monster before his inevitable death. Maybe all this mysterious rebirth happened because of him. Thoughts were all jumbled up in his mind. What happened to his beloved girl after the explosion? What kind of mysterious monster was that destroyed the city? He desperately wanted to get outside and take a closer look at what was happening. His current fish form placed too many physical limitations on his abilities if he were somehow able to get out of this pool. It was at this tense moment that he suddenly felt a threatening presence behind him in the murky water. Turning around in fear, he saw with horror huge aggressive crabs ready to attack. The main character immediately began to desperately run away from them to save his fragile fish life. After a short time, he was completely surrounded by numerous merciless opponents from all sides. At the next critical moment, a huge predatory fish with sharp teeth suddenly appeared right above them. Then she greedily began to eat these frightened crabs one after another. Soon, the insatiable predator had completely eaten all the crabs it encountered on its bloody path. After this bloody feast, she immediately continued her merciless hunt for small, frightened fish in the murky waters. The main character quickly hid in some glass jar at the bottom of the reservoir. He realized with bitterness that until he could leave this dangerous place, he first needed to at least survive in this unfamiliar underwater world. He suddenly received a mystical notification that the magical leveling system had been successfully activated in his new body. At that unexpected moment, a beautiful mermaid with an iridescent tail mysteriously appeared right in front of him. The confused protagonist asked incredulously who she was and where she came from in these waters. The mysterious girl, without further ado, immediately grabbed his silver fin tightly. The surprised protagonist began to persistently ask where she was, so resolutely dragging him through the seaweed. The silent girl didn't answer at all. She just stubbornly continued to drag him along through the underwater thickets. They quickly reached shallow water at this tense moment of the chase. The puzzled protagonist irritably asked again who she was, and what she wanted from him. After this sharp question, he himself thought deeply about his strange situation. The mysterious girl finally calmly said that she was his personal development system in this world. She gracefully pointed a thin finger upward, where all the detailed statistics of the main character with all the parameters were glowing in the air. The interested guy impatiently asked how he could quickly increase his current level and become stronger. The mermaid silently pointed her graceful finger at the food floating nearby and insistently told him to eat it for development. The hungry protagonist immediately grabbed the nearest food into his fish mouth. The breadcrumb was greedily consumed. Only 0.1 precious evolution points were obtained. So in order to successfully evolve, you just need to constantly eat different foods. The mysterious girl system simply remained meaningfully silent and did not answer his questioning look at all. Immediately after this small success, he began to search even more actively for and consume any available food around him. Strange things were happening in the sunny shallows of the lake at this very time. At midday, tired carp simply lay peacefully on a flat, warm stone and slept soundly after the hunt. Unexpectedly, he received a significant +5 evolution points in that amazing moment of his dream. When he woke up, he was irritated and did not understand how he had spent so much physical effort for such an insignificant growth, how it was even possible to exist in this world. Suddenly he became alert and noticed some movement and flickering on the surface of the water. The hungry carp immediately began to energetically and greedily eat the nutritious food falling from above. Who could have known that he could grow so quickly from this food? But who feeds the fish at such a late hour on this lake? Right above on the shore stood some beautiful young girl, thoughtfully feeding the swimming fish with breadcrumbs. In her thin hands she carefully held a small mirror, which contained a memorable photograph of her with some young smiling guy. She spoke quietly about how they were so close to the long-awaited meeting after separation. Carp remembered how he once told her that he would definitely wait for her return. It was definitely Lin Hao himself in his past life. The shocked Carp suddenly realized that his name was indeed Lin Hao too, and that her husband had died heroically in the disaster, which was why she looked so inconsolably sad on the shore. After this bitter memory, the girl accidentally dropped the precious photograph from her trembling hand. Then she was very frightened and surprised when she saw the falling picture. She desperately reached forward for that dear photograph, trying to catch it. Unfortunately, the photograph fell right into a deep lake and began to slowly sink into the water. After this loss, the grief-stricken girl began to cry bitterly on the shore. At this tense moment, a serious man in uniform suddenly approached her and formally told Captain Lo that she urgently needed to immediately move out on a new mission. The professional girl quickly and decisively wiped away her bitter tears with her sleeve and said that it was fine. She was ready to carry out her official duty. As she left, she thought tenderly of her dead husband and promised that she would definitely find his trace when this whole dangerous mission was finally over. The excited carp boy suddenly realized that it really could be his beloved Xiao Xue on the shore. It gradually began to dawn on him that it really was she, his lost beloved. He desperately began to mentally appeal to her and persistently ask her not to do thoughtless, stupid things on a dangerous mission. He desperately wanted her to somehow miraculously see him in this fish form as soon as possible. He even tried to jump out of the water and loudly call her name with his fish mouth. But then he saw with bitterness that her silhouette had already disappeared into the distance. She had gone off to do her duty. The sad fact that they physically could not communicate normally caused him a lot of mental problems. how he should live on without her in this strange guise. In that bitter moment of separation, he suddenly remembered their precious engraved pocket watch. It was their special keepsake to each other, a symbol of love, and he was determined to get it back at any cost to prove his identity. But now he was too physically weak in the form of a carp. This circumstance greatly irritated and infuriated him with his helplessness. He bitterly did not understand why fate was so cruel, and he and his beloved could not truly meet even after his reincarnation. Lin Hao quietly wiped away his bitter tears with his fin as he watched his beloved's figure leave. He mentally swore that she would definitely wait for his return to human form. In the dark lake, deep night gradually set in, and the waters acquired a mysterious black hue. Some carefree crab was swimming leisurely, unhurriedly, and absolutely calmly among the seaweed. Then suddenly someone ate him with lightning speed, leaving only empty claws. It was actually Lin Hao, who was hungry and began to actively hunt. The surprised mermaid system told him that other fish usually just swim around mindlessly, but she had never met such an unusual fish that was so purposeful and intelligent. He suddenly received a magical notification that the owner had successfully fulfilled all the necessary conditions for evolution. Whether he wanted to evolve right now, he was curiously not understanding what this mysterious evolution would lead to. But of course, without hesitation, he resolutely chose the positive option for his development. After this choice, he immediately began to evolve intensively, as strange as it may look from the outside. The mermaid system looked at his glowing body in surprise and said philosophically that there really is no limit to perfection for living beings. Then, the transformed Lin Hao slowly opened his new eyes, getting used to the changes. The mysterious system girl looked at his changed appearance in surprise, admiring the result. The updated guy nervously said that she had scared him a lot with her intense gaze. She sincerely did not understand why the leveling process took so long. Looking at himself, the guy thoughtfully said that he didn't know all the changes yet. It seemed that he had definitely become much longer, and his scales now felt much stronger and more durable. The girl playfully asked what part of his body had become longer, but then stopped short, since he was only a fish, so she thought it was obvious that his entire body had become longer. He was now at level 3. His race was a black carp, his length was an impressive 45 centimeters, his weight was a solid 4 kilograms. His combat power had increased to level 1 or 2. His skills included a strong swing and iron scale armor. His vitality was stable, and his current evolution points were 0 out of the required 200 points for the next level. In addition to the basic skills of powerful slash and iron scale armor, 2 completely new skills were suddenly added after evolution. The mermaid system began to explain in detail that his scales now become as strong as tempered steel for a full 3 seconds. The skill cooldown is only 10 seconds, he asked in admiration, confirming that advanced armor every 10 seconds is really impressive and gives him a huge tactical advantage. Then he suddenly noticed a strange movement in the water nearby. He clearly saw a school of small fish greedily devouring some helpless creature at that very moment. A great many hungry fish gathered around the dying creature, and they all aggressively ate its flesh, tearing it into pieces. Intrigued, Lin Hao resolutely walked towards them to investigate what was happening. One of the voracious predators suddenly noticed the approaching protagonist and turned to him. Without thinking, Lin Hao literally began to fight them fiercely, defending his territory. Surprisingly, he did this extremely quickly, and without any visible effort thanks to his new abilities. At this tense moment, someone huge suddenly wanted to eat him from behind. Lin Hao instantly turned around to see who exactly dared to attack him, and then he activated his defense and literally began to shine brightly right in the stunned fish's mouth, burning it. After this dazzling display of power, all the surrounding predators began to panic and quickly run away from him in different directions. Naturally, the satisfied Lin Hao was extremely happy that he had become so powerful in a short time of evolution. He received a system notification about an update of game tasks, a normal task. To absorb 100 Black Lancer fish, progress 0 out of 100. The reward is improved night vision, a difficult task. To defeat a mutated creature, the reward is a random new skill. The guy asked in surprise if he really can also perform tasks in addition to evolution. He was extremely curious about what would happen to his body and mind after all these mysterious absorptions and evolutions. The mysterious system girl said meaningfully that the real reward for completing all the tasks was much more significant and larger than he could imagine. He asked hopefully if this could really turn him back into a human after all the trials. The system girl smiled thoughtfully and said philosophically that, as is often said in this strange world, everything is possible for the worthy. This promising prospect gave him a powerful motivation, because if he could truly become human again, then the first and most important thing he had to do was return the precious keepsake to him and Xiao. The inspired carp boy immediately and decisively set out to retrieve the lost watch at this very critical moment in his development. The alarmed mermaid system asked him worriedly if he was really rushing so recklessly to the dangerous depths, as if he wanted to die, to which he sharply replied that she should not interfere with him in carrying out his most important mission. To his great relief, the precious keepsake lay peacefully right on the muddy bottom of the lake, glistening in the moonlight. He was overjoyed to notice that the precious watch was not yet surrounded by large predatory fish or other dangerous creatures. The determined Lin Hao immediately rushed towards the treasured watch, feeling a surge of adrenaline. He was overjoyed that he would finally be able to return their shared keepsake, symbolizing their love. Suddenly, at that very moment, something enormous began to approach threateningly from the dark depths. Right at that critical moment, he saw with horror in front of him an extremely large predatory fish with sharp teeth. In horror, he seemed to be mentally transported back to the crumbling ancient city of Linten at the moment of his first death. The frightened mermaid system persistently asked why he had so recklessly and stupidly climbed into such a dangerous place without preparation. The guy bitterly says that he is such a pathetic weakling that he cannot even return a simple pocket watch without risking his life. In the face of danger, he began to touchingly remember happy moments with his beloved girl, as if saying goodbye to life. It was in his memories that she gently came out of the shower and began to approach him affectionately with a smile on her face. The guy sat intently and worked diligently on the computer in that serene moment. She hugged him tenderly from behind and quietly said that she was terribly hungry. The attentive protagonist thoughtfully asked what exactly she would like, to which the girl dreamily replied that she would like hot, aromatic noodles. After a short time, the caring guy skillfully prepared her delicious noodles with steaming broth. He gently repeated to her that the delicious noodles were completely ready to eat. The situation that suddenly occurred at the next tense moment greatly surprised his unprepared mind. He absolutely could not understand what exactly was happening to the mysterious girl. The curious girl looked closely at his confused face and softly asked what he was thinking so deeply about. Lin Hao replied with restraint that it was nothing particularly important. She firmly said that if he really wanted something sincerely, he would definitely have to fight hard for it. Let him work hard to effectively absorb nutritious food and gradually evolve. At the decisive moment, Lin Hao suddenly slapped the glowing ball that magically created the mysterious girl. Then he said sincerely that she was absolutely right in all her reasoning. Inspired, Lin Hao was deeply motivated and firmly said that they would immediately take action. At the next important moment, he cautiously approached a large seashell. The puzzled boy couldn't understand at all whether seashells had always been so incredibly large and massive. The hungry Lin Hao literally began to vigorously eat the seashells. After a short time, he suddenly felt a piercing, sharp pain and could not understand at all what this unpleasant sensation was. He immediately spat them out because he couldn't even bite them completely with his weak teeth. He physically cannot eat them, although they lie temptingly right in front of his nose, which infuriates and irritates him to no end. His weak jaws can't even bite through a hard shell. Now he can only eat small fish. How long will it take him to evolve to get enough strength? At this sunny time, something unusual was happening on the sandy seashore. Someone stopped suddenly right at the water's edge. It was the charming Xiao herself. As it turned out unexpectedly, at this tense moment, excited people were tightly surrounding some huge, scary monster. The tall man stepped forward decisively and loudly asked what this unknown creature was. All those gathered watched what was happening with undisguised fear. The frightened girl also quickly jumped out of the parked car. She immediately started shouting loudly for them to immediately begin the evacuation procedure and be sure to keep a safe distance. She said excitedly that this dangerous thing could explode unexpectedly at any unpredictable moment. Many people have heard of similar cases of terrible explosions before. The huge whales often exploded due to a critical excess of toxic putrefactive gas that accumulated during the natural decomposition of their massive corpses. It is undoubtedly one of the most deadly natural bioweapons known to mankind. She resolutely came closer, carefully put on protective gloves, and professionally took sharp scalpels in her hands, clearly telling them to immediately prepare special ventilation pipes. She then carefully made a precise cut into the body of this mysterious monster. Immediately after that, she quickly inserted a long ventilation pipe there. The focused girl said loudly that the necessary tubes had been successfully connected to the body. Suddenly, someone from the crowd of onlookers turned to her in fear. They urgently receive an alarming message about critical errors in the system. She was told insistently that she must leave there immediately for her own safety. The frightened girl began to quickly tear off her protective clothing, screaming that they urgently needed to run as far as possible. After this warning, all those present very quickly began to panic and flee from the dangerous place. Just after the mass evacuation, this monstrous monster exploded loudly, just like a rotting whale explodes. At this very time, events were taking place on the ocean floor. In the cool depths, colorful fish simply rested peacefully in safety. Hungry Lin Hao actively hunted for small, nimble fish. Although the shrimp weren't all that tasty and had an unpleasantly crunchy texture, they gave him significantly more valuable evolution points than regular fish remains. An important achievement experienced shrimp hunter was unexpectedly received. A well-deserved reward was received for this achievement. An ordinary treasure chest, the amazed girl said in surprise that he successfully ate more than 200 of these small shrimp. The interested guy carefully asked if this was a standard achievement system. He had a strong desire to immediately open the mysterious chest right now. Lin Hao nodded confidently, indicating that he really wanted to do so. After this decision, a glowing magic chest suddenly appeared in the girl's graceful hands. Then the mysterious chest slowly began to open with a melodic creaking sound. All these bright, multicolored rays of light began to rapidly approach the surprised main character. He successively received a significant increase in physical strength. Then the unique skill Bubble Charge. Improved elastic fins, significantly increased agility, significantly increased critical damage, then overall increased base damage, and noticeably increased stamina. The delighted guy also immediately paid special attention to the fact that he additionally received razor-sharp, powerful teeth. Naturally, this incredible improvement made him very happy and inspired. Well, okay, in this situation he sees absolutely nothing bad or dangerous. At this critical moment, something strange began to actively happen to his body. The curious girl excitedly began to persistently beg him to show her something urgently. Confused, Lin Hao asked in confusion. Wasn't she part of the system itself, and shouldn't she automatically know what exactly he had received? Does he realize that game rewards are always given out completely randomly, and even an all-powerful system cannot fully track them all at once? He suddenly received an official notification that the reward he had received had been successfully applied to his body. He had absolutely no idea what this strange sensation was, and why it was itching so much inside him. The puzzled guy categorically did not understand how much this incessant itching was causing him. Then, quite by accident, he bit into a hard seashell. He easily bit through it with just one powerful bite. So easily and effectively did he do it with his new teeth. The amazed protagonist excitedly asked what his new sharp teeth looked like now. She said discreetly that it was completely outside her professional competence, so she preferred to remain without detailed comments. Then the energetic Lin Hao resolutely went out to hunt in the deep sea again. The experienced guy already understood well why the local fish were so terrible and unpleasant to taste. He was extremely curious about how unusual these mutated creatures would be, and what was officially considered a mutated creature. Those that mutated due to heavily polluted water or something completely different. Lin Hao knew very well that all the tasks in the system were generated solely based on what the user could actually do, randomly distributed, although she herself did not know this principle for sure. If the first assumption is correct, then in this underwater world there really is a material being, as dangerous as the one that mercilessly killed him last time. At this tense moment, something unknown was closely watching his every move. The alarmed Lin Hao keenly felt that piercing gaze and instantly turned around, but saw absolutely no one suspicious around. The frightened boy quietly asked himself who was hiding there and why a chill of fear suddenly ran down his spine. At that very moment, somewhere up above, an enraged Boss Peng was shouting loudly that the dangerous pleco fish absolutely should not be released into the wild, and that he should shut up immediately and tell everyone that it was absolutely not a real exotic fish. Intrigued, Lin Hao listened tensely to their conversation at this critical moment. Then, despite all the warnings, they still released the strange fish into the pond. He had no idea what a grave mistake people were making by releasing an aggressive pleco into the unprepared wild. At one fateful moment, something huge began to move rapidly straight towards them. The stunned Lin Hao didn't even have time to take any action, or even understand who it was that was approaching. It was actually that same terrifying creature that had previously been peacefully sleeping next to the valuable gift that the guy had been so persistently looking for. The shocked Lin Hao began to receive urgent system notifications that the danger level had suddenly reached a critical level, strongly recommending that he please immediately prepare for a deadly fight. He had absolutely no idea what he should do immediately in such a dangerous situation. He absolutely had to get out of this small, enclosed pond quickly and avoid this unexpected mess altogether. Then, suddenly, some huge predatory fish joined the conflict. They began to fight each other aggressively and furiously. not paying attention to those around them. The first devastating bite was applied with lightning speed by the large predator. The observant Lin Hao wisely said the old saying that when cats fight, mice have a field day, which means the idiom has a deep meaning. When there are three parties involved in a conflict, the third party often benefits. It seems that he is in the role of the most successful third party here. This cunning thought clearly flashed through the resourceful guy's head. Then, the observant Lin Hao suddenly noticed a small fish behind him. He reacted instantly and ate it in one gulp with lightning speed. He was surprised to realize that this unusual thing was much more difficult to digest than it initially seemed. And what was worse was that it unpleasantly disintegrated inside and got stuck in the throat. The rare fish Pleco successfully devoured its meat, earning a whopping 10 valuable evolution points, and he realizes with satisfaction that he really earned some important points from this catch. The helpful system explained to him in detail how exactly the complex mechanism of evolution works in this world. At this crucial moment, he noticed with amazement that the huge shark had unexpectedly lost the brutal fight. The victorious monster then began actively searching for its next potential victim in the surrounding area. After a short search, it looked menacingly straight at the frozen protagonist. The bloodthirsty creature stared straight at the frightened protagonist at this tense moment. He did not move at all at this critical moment, and stared intently at his dangerous opponent. The rational Lin Hao clearly understood that he absolutely did not need to panic in this situation. The attentive guy suddenly noticed that the formidable opponent had been seriously wounded in the previous fight. Immediately after this encouraging thought, the monster resolutely began to attack him with all its remaining power. The agile Lin Hao began to turn towards the nearest shelter with lightning speed. After this maneuver, he successfully climbed behind a large protective rock on the bottom. The puzzled creature could not understand where the nimble guy had suddenly disappeared to. But immediately after a short search, the enraged monster furiously scattered all these massive stones with one powerful blow. Surprisingly, the guy was nowhere to be seen within attack range. Luckily, there were so many small, colorful fish swimming around that he probably managed to swim away unnoticed, and the predator finally lost sight of him. But for some reason, an unpleasant chill continues to run down the wary creature's spine, as if it senses an invisible danger. The enraged monster continued to methodically destroy all the massive stones on its destructive path, in order to be sure to find the hiding guy. He had no idea what this crazy giant fish was trying to achieve, whether it wanted to kill him so badly, or whether it had some other goal. If the predator does not notice his presence, then he will not be in an excessive hurry to make a risky escape. He definitely still has a real chance to survive. After the ferocious monster dealt a crushing blow directly to his fragile shelter, the frightened Lin Hao quickly began to flee from the imminent danger. The monstrous monster instantly opened its huge mouth wide at this critical moment. After a lightning-fast throw, he grabbed the defenseless boy tightly with his long, sticky tongue. The doomed guy realized with horror that his inevitable end had come. Was it really true that he couldn't compensate for this colossal difference in strength? He desperately tried to do something, clearly understanding that his beloved Xiao was faithfully waiting for his return. He absolutely could not die so easily and senselessly. At that tense moment, the worried girl looked back in fear, sensing danger. She ran away quickly, and at that very moment, the terrifying sea monster exploded deafeningly behind her. And then someone suddenly grabbed her trembling hand tightly, preventing her from falling. She stopped abruptly after this sudden contact. This was a truly brave man, and he selflessly covered the surprised girl with his muscular body from the flying fragments. She gratefully continued to stand behind him in this dangerous moment, feeling protected. After some time, the horrific explosion ended completely, leaving behind destruction. The grateful girl sincerely thanked him for saving her, and he modestly said that she was not worth the gratitude. After that, they carefully approached the smoking remains of this mysterious creature. A strange green glowing substance was discovered right inside the huge dead organism. She said anxiously that it was extremely bad and dangerous. She gave them a firm command to immediately bring any weapons they could find. These were the deadly eggs of that terrible creature, and they absolutely must not allow even one of them to return to the open ocean. Armed soldiers were rapidly approaching them from all sides. The disciplined soldiers ran as fast as they could, realizing the urgency of the situation. The determined girl also confidently took the heavy weapon into her trained hands. After a brief briefing, they simultaneously began to shoot at these dangerous eggs, destroying each one. The admiring man respectfully said that their captain was not only incredibly smart, but also amazingly accurate, and he laughed sincerely at this tense moment. The focused girl continued to shoot methodically, completely ignoring his distracting compliments. The desperate guy clearly understood that he absolutely could not die here ingloriously. He absolutely had to find a way to get out. He absolutely could not die here filled with deep regret. He kept telling himself that he had to get out of this nightmare. That he absolutely could not die here in the monster's stomach. The concentrated Lin Hao clearly understood that he had to get out of here immediately at any cost. He suddenly remembered an important detail, that the attacking creature had been seriously wounded in the previous fight. He mentally reconstructed the picture of the battle and remembered that the fatal wound was on the monster's back. He was firmly trapped in the monster's wet stomach and had no idea how he could physically reach its vulnerable back. If he doesn't urgently find an effective solution, he will inevitably be digested alive. He quickly analyzed the situation. His reliable iron scale armor protected him for a maximum of 3 precious seconds. Using this temporary protection and his new razor-sharp teeth, he would definitely be able to find that saving wound. The shocked Lin Hao was horrified and could not understand whether the mortally wounded creature had somehow begun to rapidly recover. The monster was indeed actively regenerating its tissues at this critical moment, healing its wounds. The attentive protagonist finally discovered a deep, unhealed wound in the soft tissue. He was determined to use his powerful jaws at this crucial moment. The desperately struggling guy began to energetically crawl out, gnawing through the flesh. The wounded creature instantly felt a piercing, sharp pain inside itself at that agonizing moment. Then, the persistent Lin Hao successfully broke out in a matter of seconds, leaving a trail of blood behind him. The released Lin Hao rushed away as fast as he could in his condition. Thanks to his extraordinary speed, Lin Hao was able to successfully escape from his enraged pursuer. The out-of-breath guy told the omnipresent system with relief how good it was that the monster had been wounded beforehand. Otherwise, he would have inevitably died. The worried system asked him carefully if he was okay after such an ordeal. He had no idea how deep this seemingly harmless pond really was. Judging by the fact that such a giant mutated sea serpent could easily fit in it, there was probably some kind of interdimensional portal at its mysterious bottom. Although even the omnipresent system didn't know for sure, so he personally had to find out. Since he has already successfully removed all the large, dangerous predators from the territory, he can calmly enjoy small prey. The hungry Lin Hao decided to eat the small, harmless fish swimming around. The frightened fish looked in surprise at the new predator in their waters. The inspired guy began to quickly approach the flock, mentally telling himself that he would enjoy these delicious gifts of generous nature with great joy. He diligently gained so much necessary experience, although the taste of these fish is terribly unpleasant and specific. He suddenly received an important system notification that the owner had successfully fulfilled all the necessary conditions for an evolutionary leap, whether he wanted to immediately evolve to the next level. His current level of development is represented by the following parameters. Body length is 70 centimeters. Weight is 10 kilograms. Combat power is 3 units. 2 active skills are a tearing bite and a tail strike. Protective armor is made of iron scales. He has no divine powers at all, and the accumulated evolution points are 51 out of the required 5,300. The puzzled protagonist asked in bewilderment what this strange system of evolution was. The attentive girl patiently said that there were additional important details at the bottom of the information window. Rending Bite is a passive skill that greatly increases the strength and destructiveness of a bite. The main advantage is that it is a passive skill that works constantly. Although it is worth noting that although he has already grown to an impressive 70 centimeters in length, he is still catastrophically different in size from that giant sea serpent. Lin Hao clearly realized that he urgently needed to absorb more small fish, as he had received a normal quest to absorb 100 small fish, a second normal quest to absorb 100 apple snails, and a difficult elite quest to track down and defeat a mutated creature. The hero immediately began hunting the numerous small fish swimming around. The determined protagonist methodically ate one fish after another. Then he accidentally noticed a suspiciously empty abandoned shell at the bottom. Right inside this shell, some unknown sea worms were hiding. They looked warily straight at the curious observer. The puzzled Lin Hao had no idea what these strange creatures were. Then one of these nimble worms suddenly crawled out and instantly decided to attack the unsuspecting fish near it. The aggressive worm cold-bloodedly climbed straight into the defenseless eye of the unfortunate fish. Following this brutal attack, the doomed fish began to die painfully before the eyes of the shocked observer. He had absolutely no idea what the hell this unknown sea creature was. Shocked, Lin Hao asked with disgust if these worms really feed on the brains of other fish. The curious guy persistently asked the system what this nasty stuff was, whether he could safely eat it or whether it was better to avoid it. to which the system girl advised him to try it carefully. The determined Lin Hao boldly ate the infected fish along with the parasite. And just at that very moment he carefully noticed how a small, nimble fish quickly swam away from him. He was puzzled as to how he was supposed to effectively catch and eat it if it kept slipping out of his mouth. The insightful Lin Hao deeply understood that this strange thing definitely did not come from this shallow pond, that it was a completely ordinary fish from the deep ocean. Suddenly he realized the deep meaning of what was happening. Although on the surface everything seems calm and peaceful, in reality every organism is struggling for its daily survival in a cruel world. The impatient system girl irritably asked what he was still thinking philosophically about for so long. The focused protagonist firmly decided that there was absolutely no way he could waste precious time. He urgently needed to level up in order to successfully return to normal life. The hungry boy said decisively that the long-awaited lunchtime had arrived, and energetically began to eat the small fish around him. At that very time, special police quickly arrived at the scene of the incident near the picturesque shore. Experienced officers carefully examined the crime scene and said that it was extremely reminiscent of other similar cases. They carefully examined every corner of the closed room. Some agitated man spoke emotionally, saying that it looked like they had all been mercilessly killed by the mutated Golts. Of course, the skeptical police did not believe his fantastic stories at all. The desperate man began to insistently swear to the pure truth, assuring that the terrifying loach had fiercely bitten the unfortunate Jen's neck and had insidiously climbed into his defenseless body. Late last night he was so scared by what was happening that he was physically unable to go to the police due to shock. The observant policeman shrewdly noticed that the frightened man had mentioned the plural of them. But at the crime scene they found only one lifeless body, which raises a logical question. Where are the other victims? The confused man categorically believed that such a situation was absolutely impossible under the given circumstances. He excitedly repeated that they were all brutally killed by that damned mutated Golts. He persistently told his friends not to take that dangerous thing home, but they stubbornly did not listen to his warnings. The strict policeman firmly said that the witness was categorically not allowed to leave the scene of the crime yet, since they had not yet completed a thorough investigation. The doomed man said hopelessly that everything was already irrevocably over. The senior police officer firmly ordered them to immediately contact the elite dragon group. This definitely seemed to be their specialized part of the investigation. At this tense moment, a professional female scientist carefully examined the strange dead fish. She confidently told her colleagues that it was just an empty, lifeless shell without any insides. She persistently asked the witness where exactly he had found the mutant's eggs. He said hesitantly that he found them on a deserted coastline in a restricted area. The worried girl urgently asked the officers if there were any more missing persons, and the experienced policeman reported that they had discovered a fresh trail of blood leading straight to a fast-flowing river nearby. She instantly realized the terrible truth. It seemed that yesterday's deceased was originally infected with this mutated char, and his body was probably completely filled with the deadly eggs of the aggressive char. The determined girl immediately dialed Commander Zhao's number and excitedly said that they had extremely important news. There was a real chance that the dangerous mutated cocoon they had been looking for so long had slipped out into a densely populated urban area without being noticed, so they urgently needed to split into search teams and begin a thorough search immediately. She insistently asked him to personally take her to the said river, where the footprint was found. Meanwhile, in the shallow waters of the reservoir, the contented protagonist said with satisfaction that he had finally successfully finished his meal. The surprise system was perplexed that there was so much variety of food around here. Why did he selectively eat only pleco? To which he shrewdly replied that she simply did not know the key fact. Pleco is a dangerous invasive species that requires destruction. The protagonist said that he dealt with them, as they could pose a threat to the corn and wildlife in the shallow waters. Only harmless native species remained here, eating which would not give him anything. He already had 1,680 points out of the required 1,000. The system reported that he had fulfilled the conditions for evolution, and asked if he wanted to evolve now. It seemed like he could level up again, which was certainly a good opportunity. The protagonist thought about how leveling up was like a lucky charm for a very lucky carp, wondering what benefit improving his luck would bring. Task update, normal task. Pet 100 plecos, 32 out of 100 completed difficult task. Pet 10 mutated creatures. The protagonist noticed that the tasks are updated every day, as he had previously assumed. He considered the task of absorbing 10 mutated creatures, doubting that there would be that many in this pond. The sea loaches must be living in the sea. Someone is probably deliberately throwing mutated creatures into Hulong Pond, or mutants existed among the plecos that were released here earlier. The protagonist realized that there was no point in thinking about it so much. The guy decided that they would return to pumping. After this, the main character began to improve his characteristics. He acquired a new skill of camouflage. While standing still, the body will mimic the color of the surrounding environment. The protagonist noticed that the divine power had increased in level. There was mention of living beings of a small territory, but nothing specific about him. The girl, who was standing nearby with her mother, was extremely surprised by the sight she saw. She exclaimed to her mother that she needed to see it because there were so many fish there. They were not working now, so she suggested coming here another time. At that moment, the soldiers approached them. The military insistently demanded that all outsiders leave the area immediately, repeating their demand twice to make their point. Subsequently, they threw some unidentified devices directly into the pond. The main character was puzzled as to what these devices were. The use of such objects indicated that they were definitely looking for something. It was at this critical moment that the devices reacted, apparently detecting the boy. People were immediately notified that the probe had discovered a mutated creature. The main character was perplexed about what was happening. He received an alarming notification that he had been discovered. The remaining security personnel immediately set out to capture him. He was identified as a mutated creature and was strongly advised to leave the area immediately. The protagonist realized that things were taking a bad turn. It was at this tense moment that he noticed people rapidly approaching him. There are too many dangerous mutants living in the deep sea, which can pose a serious threat. Whether it was dangerous or not, he was determined not to wait for his death, but to take advantage of the opportunity for salvation that had come his way. The main character began to hide in the algae club. It was a good decision, considering that times have changed dramatically. The girl wondered why they didn't go down even deeper, but the main character was categorically against it. He wondered why his system could never wish him anything good, always trying to throw its master into a fiery pit of danger. Since he was here, the hero thought, why not have a bite to eat before leaving? The main character was overcome with goosebumps all over his body, although it seemed strange. After all, he is a fish now. Where could he get goosebumps at all? The guy made a strategic decision to use camouflage for concealment. This newfound camouflage proved to be an incredibly useful skill, perfect for sneak attacks. The main character decisively bit off the head of a passing fish. Her body turned out to be slippery, reminiscent of freshly cooked glass noodles in consistency. The system notified that the difficult task of petting 10 mutated creatures had been completed. Asking if he wanted to receive a reward, the hero was genuinely surprised by the actual status of the completion. The protagonist could not understand why the system did not allow him to see the contents of the reward chest for a specific task in advance. Received a reward. The skill black iron scales covering the entire body. The scales will be as durable as black iron. The main character had the feeling that his scales had been completely replaced, but he did not experience any painful sensations. Although it itched a little, his scales should have become stronger, and he received this valuable reward completely free of charge. He still couldn't get used to the first transformations. Even if this scaly protection didn't help him dominate here, it would definitely make his self-defense a trifle. At that very moment, a certain creature was watching him closely from behind cover. The protagonist turned around abruptly, sensing someone's wary presence nearby. He instantly noticed some kind of snake lurking in front of him. Lin Hao realized that it was the same mutant snake that had appeared in these waters again. The predatory reptile, without wasting time, immediately rushed towards the main character. A system notification warned that the enemy's strength slightly exceeded the master's. The main character instinctively began to swim away from the snake pursuing him. Since the difference in strength turned out to be insignificant, he decided that he simply had to show who was the real master of the territory here. The protagonist boldly turned around and stood right in front of the aggressive enemy at this decisive moment. The protagonist made a strategic decision to activate the protective black iron scales. The snake, without a second's hesitation, instantly attacked and bit him right after that. However, the predator soon sensed something was wrong when in contact with its prey. Obviously, he couldn't bite through the hero's scale-protected flesh so easily. Realizing the futility of the attack, the reptile immediately spat out the rebellious hero. Taking advantage of the enemy's moment of confusion, the main character decided to use a strong tail swing technique. Thanks to this precise blow, he managed to dampen the serpent's offensive ardor. The defeated enemy stared in surprise at the unexpectedly strong guy. The protagonist noted with superiority that although the opponent was just a beast, this was already happening for the second time. Hadn't he learned a lesson from his last defeat? Without losing the initiative, the protagonist instantly bit the stunned snake. With tremendous effort, the protagonist tried to bite through his tough body. To strengthen his attack, the protagonist once again activated his black iron scales. The protagonist challenged the snake and asked if he was resisting, and let him continue to do so, thereby only strengthening the fruits of his evolution. When the enemy tried to escape, the protagonist mockingly asked if he hadn't originally intended to eat him. The snake desperately made numerous attempts to escape from its persistent pursuer. The protagonist continued to attack with bites, not giving up hope that he would be able to bite through the elastic body of his opponent. Dealing another blow, the protagonist confidently declared that the enemy was doomed. The cornered snake, naturally, did not want to tolerate such treatment, and also began to counterattack fiercely. After a long fight, the main character finally managed to tear off a significant piece of the enemy's skin. The serpent then tried to use its forked tongue as a weapon. Reacting instantly, the protagonist simultaneously activated the scale enhancement and delivered a powerful blow with his tail. After a successful combination, the protagonist was fully prepared to attack his experienced opponent with renewed vigor. Taking advantage of his tactical advantage, the protagonist methodically attacked the snake in various vulnerable spots. Thanks to his agility, the protagonist managed to escape from the dense ring of his scaly skin. Having gained the upper hand in the fight, the main character looked at the defeated enemy with confidence and superiority. The exhausted snake lay limply on the bottom of the pond at this dramatic moment. The system sent a notification that he had defeated a mutated red-spotted keeled snake. The main character, with some disappointment, asked the system if that was all. He noted with relief that he had finally gotten rid of that terrible taste in his mouth. Now it was time to collect the trophies due to him. Consumed a mutated creature, gained evolution points, 500. The main character was pleasantly surprised to receive as many as 500 points. This is what it means to challenge an opponent who is superior to him in level. Such courage can bring unexpected trophies. The guy curiously asked what kind of unexpected trophies awaited him. At that moment, the girl carefully touched his shoulder. Immediately after the touch, something inexplicable began to happen. The protagonist looked in amazement at his hand, which suddenly acquired a human form. The guy was extremely amazed by the metamorphoses that were happening to him. The protagonist carefully tried to move his transformed hands. The guy gradually began to fully understand the miracle that had happened to him. The boy happily reported that his beautiful human face was finally back. The system coldly explained that all the changes that had occurred were purely temporary. Lin Hao asked in confusion what exactly was meant by the word temporarily in this context. The girl patiently tried to explain to him the difficult truth that despite his human appearance, in his soul, he still remains a fish. While in human form, he will only be able to communicate with her, as other people will not be able to hear his voice. In this temporary form, he lacks any combat abilities, but the main advantage is that he looks human again. The protagonist asked with hope in his voice if he could now go ashore. The girl replied that he could, of course, do this, but if he went ashore like that without clothes, he would certainly be taken for a pervert and immediately arrested. The main character was incredibly happy to finally get out after a long period of confinement. The girl mentioned that there was a room nearby with all sorts of junk that almost no one ever looked into. Over time, various abandoned objects accumulate in this room, so this room may well become his temporary shelter and improvised dressing room. The main character, looking around, began to carefully make his way into the indicated room. Making sure that the way was clear, he quickly ran inside the room. After this, the main character hastily changed into the clothes he found there. Before leaving, the protagonist took his girlfriend's pocket watch to return it when they met. It had been a long time since he had been on the shore among people, so this situation seemed a little unusual and exciting to him. Having gathered his courage, the main character resolutely went outside into the unknown. At this tense moment, numerous soldiers formed a tight ring around the pond on all sides. One of the soldiers sternly stated that this was a restricted area and asked if he was a tourist, and why he was still there when all the onlookers had already been dispersed. The protagonist desperately tried to say something in response, but could not utter a word. Nearby, another man loudly asked if anyone had forgotten their ID, explaining to those around him that it belonged to the captain of the exploration team, Luo Xiuje, and ordered them to let her through. The protagonist was surprised to realize that this unknown man was familiar with Xiao. Without thinking, the main character immediately rushed to him, but the vigilant soldiers immediately grabbed him and tried to calm him down. The man asked suspiciously who he was, reminding him that this was a restricted area, and demanded to know why he was still there. The soldiers noted with surprise that it seemed the strange guy couldn't even speak normally. In response, the main character silently showed the man a pocket watch compass. The man asked with interest whether the item belonged to him personally. After looking closely at the watch, He suddenly realized that it belonged to Team Captain Lo. The man asked doubtfully if they knew each other. He then sincerely thanked the guy on behalf of the team captain and strongly recommended that he return home quickly, since they were conducting a serious operation here. At this critical moment, someone nearby asked irritably why all civilians had not yet been cleared from the area. It was that same team captain who asked if she had finished checking the western part of the city, to which she answered affirmatively, adding that the water area in the western part of the city was slightly smaller in area, while the guy clearly understood that he could not meet her yet since he could not speak, and the dragon scientist was now actively studying mutated creatures, and no one knew when he would cease to be human. The man said that the young man had found her thing and asked him to give it to her. She was, of course, extremely surprised and looked closely at this familiar watch. The girl excitedly asked who this man was and who exactly gave him this watch, to which the man pointed to the space behind him. The girl explained with bewilderment that there was no one there, although this was very strange, because the mysterious stranger had just been there. Trying to defuse the situation, she remarked that he was probably just a random tourist and expressed her joy that her precious pocket watch had finally been found, after which she suggested that they return to work. She was secretly extremely curious as to whether it was really Lin Hao, and she hopefully assumed that he had not died after all. The main character mentally sincerely apologized to her, realizing that he could not meet her yet, but promised himself to explain everything in detail when the right moment came. And just at that second, an alarming notification began to arrive that the time of staying in human form would soon expire. All the amazing events that have happened so far are far beyond his logical understanding, whether he is now a man or not. But one thing is clear: he can no longer live aimlessly. Realizing that his mind was able to accidentally evolve to the human level, the protagonist realized an important truth. His evolutionary path is not set in stone, and he can potentially evolve into any other creature. He was determined to evolve diligently and train constantly, so that he could eventually find out what kind of mysterious creature was torturing him so mercilessly. Nilunyan was in a completely different place at that time. The action moves to some inconspicuous room of the institution. The young girl was seriously asked if she had really made up her mind. She firmly replied to Old Man Zhang that she had indeed thought everything through carefully and made a final decision. The concerned interlocutor warned that introducing a highly concentrated virus into the body is extremely life-threatening. He insisted that as a valuable researcher, she had no need to risk her health so much. The girl firmly stated that she wanted to transfer to the task force and asked to be allowed to take this important step. The experienced mentor shrewdly remarked that he understood perfectly well that she was doing this for Lin Hao, wasn't that right? He was seriously saying that at this tense moment, the whole world was going through a huge crisis, and now was absolutely not the time for personal feelings, so she should adequately understand the current situation, to which she objected that she was doing this not only for the sake of her lover. Arguing her position convincingly, the girl explained that the research team never arrives at the scene on time, which is why a huge amount of valuable information about the mutated creatures is irretrievably lost, and if she joins the task force, this could lead to significant scientific breakthroughs in the study of these dangerous mutants. The man only grinned knowingly in response, seeing her determination. After some thought, he finally agreed with her reasonable arguments. In the shallow waters, the main character had absolutely nothing to absorb, so the decisive time had come to go to the unknown deep-sea areas. The system worriedly asked if he had thought it through well, because there were many unknown and dangerous creatures living in the deep sea. It was extremely dangerous for his level of development. The protagonist philosophically noted that the system was absolutely right. But how could he learn new possibilities if he didn't even try? And if he couldn't successfully fight the deep-sea inhabitants, he could always retreat strategically. The action takes place in Holong Pond. The main character carefully hid from various creatures nearby, fearing being discovered. The system ironically asked why the one who so desperately wanted to explore this mysterious place was now cowardly hiding, to which the protagonist objected that this was called a tactical retreat. He was simply exploring the territory extremely carefully. Suddenly, the system solemnly announced that the owner had successfully fulfilled all the necessary conditions for evolution, and asked if he wanted to evolve right now, to which the protagonist answered affirmatively without hesitation. After the transformation, he asked in surprise if it was just his imagination or if it had actually become significantly brighter, suggesting that he had probably developed night vision. The system happily congratulated the owner on reaching the 8th level of development, informing him that a special card was now available to him, and asked if he wanted to use it right now. The protagonist did not quite understand the principle of the card, and asked if it could teleport him to another place. Having carefully studied the image that appeared, the protagonist realized that it was a detailed map of the city of Linten. This detailed map mainly showed numerous rivers, with the Han River located approximately 5 kilometers north of the Dragon King. The map also showed another full-flowing river about 8 kilometers away, which flowed in close proximity to the city's chemical plant. The protagonist thought with annoyance that what good would it do him to know the exact location of the rivers if he was still hopelessly stuck in the confined space of Hualien. Suddenly, he received a system notification that today's maximum teleportation duration was exactly 1 hour, and the system asked if he wanted to teleport right now, after which the guy was surprised to realize that the map could actually help him teleport to the chosen location. The protagonist decided that there was no point in worrying in vain. He would simply try to take advantage of this unique opportunity. The next second, the main character began the process of teleportation to the intended target. Gradually, his body became more and more transparent until he completely disappeared from Hualien Pond. Having materialized in a new place, the protagonist was amazed to realize that the map had indeed successfully teleported him through space. He was delighted to find before him a new and bountiful dining table of local inhabitants. He mentally admired the fact that this plump, anxious carp tasted much better than the small, cleaner fish he had previously had to feed on. Noticing a large fish nearby, he decided to attack it at this opportune moment. Without wasting precious time, the protagonist instantly realized his intention in a matter of seconds. After a successful attack, the system reported, an adult grass carp was absorbed, 90 evolution points were obtained, and the protagonist noted with satisfaction that he was getting much more valuable points from this plump grass carp. He bitterly realized that 90 evolution points were equivalent to the energy from 3 small cleaner fish, and wondered what kind of miserable life he had been living in Hualong, where he had to settle for either tasteless apple snails or tiny cleaner fish every day when he could have been eating such high-quality and nutritious food. Suddenly, in this tense moment, he noticed some huge mysterious creature not far from his location. At first he could not accurately determine the nature of this creature, assuming that it was a snake, but immediately felt growing irritation from the mere sight of this snake-like creature. The main character froze and began to carefully observe the mysterious creature, analyzing its behavior. After some time, another large creature appeared, at the sight of which he was confused, not understanding the reality of what was happening. Ordinary carp lice cannot grow up to 2 meters in length, but in front of him was a 2-meter carp lice or some kind of its mutated analog. The protagonist did not receive any warning signals from the system, which clearly indicated that his strength and the power of the huge carp eater were approximately the same, or there was even a possibility that the opponent was weaker than him. Encouraged by this observation, the protagonist decided that no matter how mutated this carp eater was, he should just try to attack it, because if he successfully absorbed it, he would definitely receive a significant amount of evolution points, perhaps even enough to instantly level up. Without waiting for an attack, the main character himself quickly rushed at the enemy. As he attacked, he found himself frustrated that he couldn't figure out why his enemy was so incredibly slippery, making it impossible for him to bite him effectively. In self-defense, the giant carp immediately struck back at the main character. However, the protagonist was surprised to note that this attack did not hurt him at all, and was relieved to realize that the enemy was indeed significantly weaker than him. Taking advantage of his advantage, the protagonist activated the special ability of the fire scale. Immediately after activating the ability, he delivered a powerful blow to the stunned enemy. Carp was extremely surprised by the unexpected power of the attack and the unusual abilities of the aggressor. Trying to defend itself, the large fish began to ram the main character intensely, hoping to push him away. In a desperate attempt to defend itself, the carp opened its huge mouth wide, preparing for a counterattack. The main character, not missing the opportunity, struck the enemy with lightning speed right in the vulnerable spot. Feeling his superiority, the protagonist laughed to himself and noted with satisfaction that his careless opponent had fallen into a skillfully set trap. Noticing that the wounded carp was trying to escape, the protagonist firmly declared that he was not going to let go of his valuable catch so easily. In the midst of the pursuit, the guy suddenly received an urgent notification from the system that the teleportation time had expired, and in 3 seconds, there would be a forced return to Hualong Pond. And at this critical moment, the main character noticed with horror the silhouette of some mysterious person in front of him. There was something disturbingly familiar about the stranger's appearance, persistently reminding him of something important from the past. With a chilling horror, the protagonist suddenly realized that the mysterious figure was strikingly similar to the very same deadly creature that once mercilessly killed him. After teleportation, the protagonist suddenly realized an alarming truth. His hometown was in serious danger. Panic-stricken, the boy desperately tried to calm down and collect his thoughts. Confused, he couldn't figure out why this disgusting creature seemed so strangely familiar to him. While the girl from the system practically asked why he didn't just go back there and take a closer look at the mysterious figure, the protagonist eagerly asked how exactly he could technically return to that place. The system explained that he only had two options: either stay here in Hulong Pond, wait patiently until tomorrow and teleport to the same place again, or go there immediately on his temporary human legs. Unfortunately, with his limited movement speed, he would only be able to reach the Han River, 5 kilometers away, before he would involuntarily turn into a carp again. And then he would have to wait there agonizingly until the next day just to be able to return back to his starting point. The protagonist thought seriously about the dilemma that had arisen, weighing all the possible risks. Having quickly analyzed the situation, he firmly realized that precious time was inexorably running out. So he had to go there right now, without delaying a minute. While nearby, the protagonist accidentally overheard a conversation in which an unknown man asked the girl whether his assumption that she had already submitted an official application was correct, and when exactly she planned to leave. The girl calmly replied that she had practically finished all of her current work duties and was planning to leave tomorrow morning. The protagonist realized with growing alarm that he had absolutely no idea where exactly Xiao Shuje was planning to leave so hastily. The man shrewdly noted that back on the very day when Old Man Zhang first brought her to the elite dragon group, he had unmistakably realized that a standard mutant research lab would absolutely not satisfy her research ambitions. When she later received a prestigious invitation to join a national-level elite driver squad, she was incredibly happy. And when she first heard the mysterious phrase, Dragon Group, she instantly had a special feeling of an important mission. However, the more secret information she learned about the true nature of this organization, the more difficult it became to stick to her original noble intentions. As it turns out, there are two opposite sides of the same coin. On the one hand, the mutated creatures actually pose a huge threat to public safety. On the other hand, the mysterious GT virus they carried turned out to be not entirely useless for humanity, as was previously thought. The girl carefully shared the shocking information that all members of the task force were deliberately injected with small, controlled amounts of this dangerous virus, specifically to significantly improve their physical performance and combat abilities. She explained that in order for the human body to go beyond its usual evolutionary limits, it must be injected with a highly concentrated dose of a modified virus, which is associated with enormous risk. After listening to her decisive arguments, the man sympathetically placed his hand on her shoulder as a sign of support. With sincere respect, he acknowledged that she was a true fearless warrior, so he would not dissuade her from her decision, but would only fervently hope that she would certainly return safe and sound from the dangerous expedition. The girl said with determination in her voice that she would definitely return alive, because the person dear to her heart was still waiting for her here. Finally, she hopefully expressed the wish that the entire upcoming dangerous mission would go as smoothly as possible and without any unforeseen complications. Meanwhile, the protagonist has successfully transformed into his temporary human form, preparing for an important decision. With horror, he finally realized that his beloved girl had voluntarily joined the secret dragon group with the sole purpose of studying mutated creatures more deeply. Now she recklessly sets out on an extremely dangerous mission, the outcome of which is impossible to predict. Logically reasoning, the main character came to an alarming conclusion. If all mutants are indeed carriers of a deadly virus, then this insidious virus is also present in his own body. At this critical moment, the system suddenly appeared with an important warning. She sternly reminded him that she could maintain his human form for a maximum of 40 minutes, so she strongly recommended that he hurry, adding that the work he had chosen was too dangerous even for a mutated creature. Without wasting precious seconds, the main character quickly ran towards the intended target. With bitter irony, he noted that it had been a long time since he had covered such significant distances on the ground on 2 legs, since such runs had been common only in his previous human life. In fact, this literally applied to his previous existence. Approaching the reservoir, the main character dived into the water without hesitation the next second, feeling relieved. With a sad smile, he admitted to himself that, as strange as it may sound, he now felt much more comfortable in the water than on land. Finding himself in a familiar environment, the protagonist began to greedily absorb everything edible that came his way, and with pleasant surprise realized that this place resembled a real buffet with a variety of delicacies. Looking around carefully, he noted that there were no usual schools of small fish nearby. which meant that there must be something much larger and more dangerous living in these waters. Watching warily as the water around him grew increasingly murky, he came to the educated conclusion that something unusual and potentially threatening was definitely going on here. Just at this tense moment, something huge and fast tried to suddenly attack and swallow him whole. Reacting instantly, the protagonist recognized the attacker as the same giant carp with which he had already fought earlier. Using his increased maneuverability, the protagonist deftly began to dodge the enemy's aggressive attacks. It was at this critical moment in the battle that he again noticed that same ominous human silhouette looming behind the enraged carp. With growing horror, he realized that something strange was happening. This mysterious entity had definitely not been as big as a cow before. Without holding back his emotions, the protagonist angrily asked if this creature was tired of holding a grudge and constantly attacking him from ambush. Thinking at lightning speed, the guy clearly understood that now it was absolutely impossible to hesitate, since he had just noticed that disgusting, deadly creature very close by. Gathering all his determination, the protagonist began to rapidly approach the chosen enemy. Before the attack, the main character decisively declared that the enemy would now get what he deserved, and immediately used his signature move, a powerful crushing swing of the tail. After a successful strike, the guy intuitively understood that an excellent chance for a decisive attack opened up before him. Without missing the opportunity, the protagonist instantly sank his sharp teeth into the enemy's body. To his satisfaction, the guy finally managed to bite through the carp's tough outer skin. Watching the reaction closely, the protagonist happily noticed that the protective mucus on the enemy's body was starting to dry out quickly, and realized that his tactics could work successfully. Inspired by his first success, he continued the attack, and even tore off a solid piece of scales from the enemy's body. Instinctively devouring the prey, the protagonist was surprised to realize that this unusual meat turned out to be exceptionally tasty and nutritious. Everything was ready. If it weren't for the slime that covered him, then everything would have become much easier. But it seemed strange, because last time he was only a little aggressive, and now he suddenly got into a fight. The main character was curious how many evolution points he would get. The girl suggested that perhaps it was tasty, but next time she advised him to fry it well. The main character ate it with great pleasure. He claimed that the taste was simply luxurious, like first-class chicken meat. The mutated carp eater was absorbed, for which 3,000 evolution points were received, which of course, incredibly surprised the guy. Another task was successfully completed. Now, apparently, there are so many fish here that they will have to be electrocuted. The main character drew his attention to this. Linhao emerged and saw people on the shore. One of them told his grandfather and two others to quickly come up with a net, and they agreed, but added that he would stun the fish with electricity himself. The guy immediately understood that this was disgusting, because they would destroy all the fish. The man noted that Xiao would have done it faster because the fish was really huge. Linhao realized that he needed to intervene. Then he suddenly jumped out at them, catching them off guard. Naturally, they were frightened by such an appearance. They immediately ran away, and Linhao noticed that they were running quite fast. The system informed him that everything would be different now. Someone would definitely pay. The guy couldn't believe how he could forget about it. At this time, an interrogation was taking place at the police station. The fisherman told the police everything. One of the men explained that they did not understand anything, because a giant fish suddenly jumped out of the Han River at him. The policeman could hardly contain his laughter when he heard this statement. The man did not understand what this meant and simply fell silent. The policeman said, "No problem, go ahead." And one of them asked if he was sure he had actually seen her. Maybe they had just had a bit too much to drink that evening. Olga lied that they were just planning to go fishing in the evening and did not drink alcohol. The policeman asked if they really were going fishing in Hanshui, despite the fishing ban in effect there. The men realized that the situation had turned against them. One of them started saying that he remembered urgent matters. Maybe they imagined it all and nothing happened at all. After which they began to apologize for the inconvenience caused. The policeman noted that once again the fish was breaking the law. A fish larger than a human had appeared in the Hanshui River. The second policeman did not think that they were lying, because a few days ago they had received secret documents. Perhaps it was worth reporting. Better to be on the safe side, because times are already turbulent. Meanwhile, Linhao and the girl were floating somewhere forward. He said that they searched all night but never found the monster, although it couldn't have just disappeared into thin air, because the smell was still there. Linhao remembered the task and thought that he should receive a reward now. This panel looked great, and the buffet really helped elevate it. The usual task of petting 100 grass carp. The reward was increasing the sharpness of teeth. Completed. The task of absorbing 100 crucian carp was also completed. The system asked if he wanted to receive the reward immediately. Lin Hao was surprised that both tasks had already been completed. It all happened thanks to the fish he ate. He gradually changed, while saying that their death was terrible, but how delicious they were. The owner fulfilled the conditions for evolution. The system asked if he wanted to evolve right now. The girl knew that he really had an outstanding talent. Lin Hao began the evolution process. Now that he had reached the 10th level, the system suggested that he bleed to check what had changed inside. Lin Hao received a speed boost, increased body size, a reinforced tail fin, improved stamina, increased defense, double absorption, increased strength, and a sharp horn. This interested the girl, and she asked what this ability was. The system asked him if he wanted to use it right now. He answered yes, noticing that his head was itching a lot, and asked if he had something long growing on him. Then a horn literally grew out of his head, which looked extremely strange. He said that the horn looked quite sharp, and if he attacked at high speed, it would become a powerful weapon. Everything was going well, and tomorrow he was going to return to Han Shui to test the power of this horn. At the same time, a meeting was taking place. There were people sitting in the hall and listening to the speaker. The man said that they had already cordoned off the area where the creature might be. Now it's time to tighten the ring. He can't be allowed to escape. He argued that the issue needed to be resolved as soon as possible, because Longyin was a large city with a large population, and if attacks began, it would be a disaster. Another man assured him that there was no need to worry. A squad of dragons would destroy him. It was wonderful. He thanked me for my service, adding that there was something else. Today, the skeleton of a huge creature was discovered in the Han River. Its structure was very different from that of ordinary fish. Its bones were unusually thick, and its teeth were large, sharp, and frighteningly curved. The girl with a serious expression said that this was the skeleton of a mutated creature. There are many carp and crucian carp in the Han River, but this skeleton was unlikely to belong to one of them. It looked more like a catfish, and they were amazed that in front of them was perhaps another mutated creature. At that moment, the girl resolutely came closer to examine everything more closely. She said that, judging by the shape of the skeleton, it was reasonable to assume that this was a fish that had evolved under the influence of a virus. She also added that there is most likely another mutant in this river, which ate this catfish. Everyone was stunned. After all, only a real giant could have swallowed such a large catfish. They began to suspect that Longant was a kind of center for the accumulation of mutants. At this point, one of the men began to discuss something with his partner, clearly concerned about what was happening. The girl noticed that in the future, there would be even more mutants, and the signs of their appearance would become more and more mixed and chaotic. The man said that the police had received a report that someone had seen a human-sized creature in the Han River last night, and that was their next target. Their task became to track down and destroy this mutated creature. At the same time, somewhere near the lake, something strange began to happen. Lin Hao knew that this creature could cut off his head with one blow, and if it really attacked, it would most likely kill him immediately. Despite the danger, he was confident that he would still be able to destroy it. Lin Hao stepped forward at the crucial moment and was determined to act immediately. After some time, he noticed bubbles in the water rising straight from the bottom. Lin Hao reacted instantly and pulled out his horn. Without wasting a second, he plunged it straight into the boar's body. Of course, the boar felt unbearable pain that pierced his body at that terrible moment. Lin Hao sternly said that it was his time to die, and just at that very moment the boar actually died. The guy was very surprised by what happened and did not immediately believe it. Lin Hao tried to pull the horn out of the boar's body. He realized that the horn was stuck, and it would not be easy to get it out. The main character found it hard to believe what was happening. But despite all the difficulties, he still managed to free himself. He thought it would be a good idea to grow extra limbs, since luckily the boar died immediately. Otherwise, it would have been much harder for him. The girl asked with interest why he didn't just become human again. She talked about the limbs that appear in combat uniform. Lin Hao replied that man was too weak a creature. But he himself is now completely different, because before he only complained, but now he wants to remain a fish. Lin Hao threw the boar's body inside and said that she was probably right. He had already gotten used to this new form. He realized that it was time to deal with the most interesting and important things. He suddenly realized that the wool tasted disgusting. He realized that he would now have to approach food in a completely different way. Lin Hao tore off a leg of the boar and decided that it was indeed much better this way. Although he had to admit that the meat of the wild boar was quite tough. After he absorbed the wild boar, the system credited him with 350 evolution points, which was roughly equivalent in value to 4 adult carps, although this might have been due to the boar's small size or some other reason. Although Lin Hao didn't care, without his horn, he wouldn't even be able to think about eating a boar. Tomorrow he will teleport back, and at this rate he will be able to level up every day. The teleportation time limit has been reached. Returning to Hualong will occur in 3 seconds. Lin Hao couldn't understand why deep-sea creatures hunted in shallow waters. After all, now the shallow water has become his territory. Who do they even think they are? Lin Hao wondered why tourists had appeared again, and whether the lockdown had ended. Someone asked if he had heard about the explosion in the Eastern District last night. They said that some kind of monster appeared there. They scared a lot. But why would anyone lie if even the police are investigating? Lin Hao began to think about the very monster that was seen in the Han River. He asked if all the mutated creatures were aquatic, if there were any on land, to which the girl replied that all creatures exposed to the virus can mutate. Lin Hao pointed at himself and asked with a slight doubt if he could become like that too. The girl gently touched his chin. She told him not to compare himself to others, because he had her. Lin Hao immediately became embarrassed, and added that perhaps the dragon troops were already hunting him now, and if they were lucky enough to kill him, it would be nice to at least eat his body. Lin Hao thought about how he would chase after the huge naked creature, monstrously ugly and frightening in its appearance. He realized that he needed to focus completely and devote all his time to hard work. The girl reminded him again and again that the most important thing now was to concentrate and not get distracted, because it was time to act. Lin Hao couldn't understand why this all now felt like real work, as if he had become an ordinary office worker. Even though he has no boss, he still continues to toil non-stop, like a slave on a grueling shift from 9 in the morning until 9 at night. And this probably does not bode well. He was congratulated on his achievement. Thanks to the increased damage, a new location for teleportation was now open to him, and the time spent there was increased by 30 minutes. The river outside the Longyan chemical plant seemed enormous, and the extra 30 minutes seemed like a generous gift. The guy realized with enthusiasm that he would now be able to absorb even more energy and resources. It's as if a new zone has appeared on the map, where the rewards for quests are constantly updated, and if the mind can grow a horn, then perhaps it can also restore lost limbs. Lin Hao activated teleportation and began moving. He felt as if he was floating in some kind of sticky, viscous slime, muttering in disgust at how disgusting the water was here. At this time, the Dragon Squad had already begun hunting. They were planning to set out tonight, and Lin Hao knew that he had to get ahead of them. He knew very well who the members of the Dragon Squad were, and if they were aiming for the same target as him, then driving them away would be almost impossible. The Dragon Squad is a secret national organization dedicated to combating mutated creatures. Their main specialization is the study of unidentified extraterrestrial life. But is there really anyone else in this place besides them? Lin Hao couldn't figure out what was inside the strange box. A weapon or something else. One of the men said that since the object was here, it was most likely that someone was trying to awaken an ancient creature hidden deep in the Longyan area. This city could contain relics of vanished ancient civilizations, hidden under a layer of time. Lin Hao had no idea that there could be an ancient creature living in this city. At that moment, something started to happen not far from the chemical plant. If they can find relics and lost military technology, they will gain a huge advantage. Then, when disaster strikes, they will be the most powerful. The man abruptly cut off the conversation and told them not to engage in empty talk here. This place seemed to be forgotten even by the gods themselves, and he did not believe that anyone could be here at all. Lin Hao realized how convenient it was to act in such an environment where no one interfered. The man continued and added that even if someone appeared here, they would simply destroy them without hesitation. Their words were threatening. They were clearly not in a friendly mood, and it was unclear why they were building something right in the city limits, as if no one cared. One of the men quietly confirmed the order received and said that everything was accepted. He threw down his cigarette and reported that the Dragon Squad had already begun to narrow the search area. The man asked doubtfully if they had really sent so many people this time for some particularly valuable mutant, since in his opinion, this was not just a bunch of children. He advised Brother Kun to pay attention to him and to suit number 3. Lin Hao couldn't figure out what kind of suit number 3 this was, a combat exoskeleton or something else. At this time, the man suddenly noticed that someone was nearby, and the guy realized that he urgently needed to hide so as not to give himself away. Lin Hao instantly disappeared, leaving no trace behind. He guessed that these strange watches they had worked as detectors of mutated creatures. Compared to the massive devices of other units, this one looked much more compact and practical. The man anxiously asked if they had detected a mutant here. The devices were uncertainly picking up a high-life signal, and there was a good chance that he was really here. After these words, he pressed the button built into the box. Almost immediately, a weapon of an unknown type appeared in his hands. Without delay, He began to attack, literally shooting at the water in front of him. He cleared a space to check if there was anyone else nearby. Lin Hao was surprised to feel the powerful pressure coming from this weapon, wondering what kind of thing this was. At that moment, the guy transmitted to his superiors via radio that there was a mutant in front of them. Lin Hao quickly returned back into the water, disappearing from sight. The man shouted that they urgently needed to start the chase, because if the mutant was that size, then there was definitely a virus inside it. Without hesitation, they rushed after him, filled with determination. Despite the difficulties, they continued their pursuit without slowing down. Lin Hao decided to get serious about escaping from them. One of the pursuers suddenly realized that this mutant was not just running, he knew how to dodge. Perhaps he had a brain and a fairly developed intellect. What was especially alarming was how quickly he moved with this bulky box on his back. This was clearly not an ordinary person in front of them. Lin Hao decisively used a powerful swing of his flexible tail. After that, he vigorously splashed cold water directly at his pursuers. After a while, Lin Hao couldn't quite figure out whether the man really just wanted to take a little rest after the chase. But why is he nervous at all, even if they catch up with him in the end? What terrible thing will happen? He will simply teleport to a safe place. The main character was incredibly curious about who these people were. It was unlikely that they were working together with Xiao. They didn't look like good guys at all, okay? It didn't matter for now. There were more important things to think about. After all, he doesn't have much precious time, so it's high time to grab a bite of some juicy tilapia. Apart from the impressive size and considerable combat power, there are no particular changes. The most disgusting fish in appearance, although such an unattractive fish definitely brings a lot of useful points here. It would be necessary to look carefully to see if any new interesting knowledge appeared, because the girl resolutely said that he was an extremely smelly creature. As many as 4 difficult tasks, where to get so many mutated creatures to complete such a difficult and important task. Lin Hao clearly understood that it was completely unimportant for him to continue leveling up his character now. First, he would definitely return to the shelter and get a good night's sleep. At that unexpected moment, he received an important notification about the possible time of teleportation. Exactly 2 a.m. Lin Hao realized with satisfaction that with the gradual increase in level, the time of available teleportation also increased noticeably. It was incredibly pleasant. He finally successfully got out of the boring starting location. This means that he doesn't need to come back for delicious pizza. He can eat right here without any worries. Lin Hao was at a loss as to what was suddenly happening around him again. He was tensely unable to understand who flashed by there. What was this incredible speed? Some kind of mutant with special abilities or something else? But Lin Hao suddenly realized the shocking fact that this was literally an ordinary person right in front of him. In his strong hands he held the same deadly weapon that he had seen somewhere before. Lin Hao suddenly realized that this was the mysterious man from the previous meeting. The man now swung his weapon decisively, preparing to attack his target. Lin Hao realized with horror that they had been purposefully following him for a long time. Lin Hao somehow managed to deftly dodge his lightning attack. The man began to mockingly say that he was a very funny creature, and mockingly asked if he really naively thought that he could escape unharmed. He then mercilessly attacked the even more confused protagonist. Lin Hao was very surprised at how incredibly fast and sharp this mysterious man's blade was. His tough protective scales were seriously damaged by this powerful blow. The man asked in surprise and arrogance if this fish was somehow still alive after that. Lin Hao suddenly began to glow very brightly with a strange glow. The man had absolutely no idea what kind of unusual phenomenon was happening. He asked, surprised and with a hint of irritation, if this stubborn carp still did not give in to its fate. He had the audacity to come at him with some pathetic toothpick or whatever kind of weapon he had. The protagonist attacked him with lightning speed at this tense moment of confrontation. It was such a powerful and precise blow that the enemy's fragile protective mask shattered into small pieces. The main character realized with amazement that this was indeed the same familiar person whom he had met before. The protagonist resolutely continued to mercilessly attack the stunned man. He had no idea what kind of strange high-tech armor this was that could enable a person to fight so skillfully under deep water. The man began to say with a grin that his boring life was already terribly boring to him. But the main character again unexpectedly attacked the enemy at the most critical moment. Then he quickly began to approach the confused man. The protagonist bit him viciously in a vulnerable spot. He couldn't understand at all what kind of super strong material this unusual armor was made of. He couldn't even bite it lightly. The man looked in surprise at the madness happening around him. He then swung his sword sharply to attack his annoying opponent mercilessly. The main character stubbornly began to put even more pressure on the enemy. The man angrily began to shout that this black creature sincerely wanted to die quickly. The main character carefully swam away from him. He was in an uncontrollable rage, but still began to speak threateningly that the man would just wait a little while for his return. Then Lin Hao suddenly teleported to a safe place. His current teleportation energy limit was completely exhausted. That sharp blade was extremely sharp, and he didn't expect such power at all. A couple more of these crushing blows and you can say goodbye to his protective scales forever. Just by the unusual strategy of using the blade, one can confidently say that this is an extremely unusual magic sword. And that high-tech armor of his, suit number 3, has advanced technology really advanced so far. Is such incredible armor even possible, or how can it be created? Lin Hao thought about ancient civilizations. Were there other intelligent beings on Earth? This amazing armor must have its roots there. It was quite logical that the mutated creatures, the mysterious ruins of civilization, the deadly virus, and the mysterious Et were all closely related. Lin Hao suddenly realized that a long time ago, a highly developed civilization appeared on Earth, leaving behind truly unique ruins, from which this strange virus originated. Et is an intelligent being from those same ancient civilizations. It is quite possible that their ultimate goal is the rediscovery of forgotten ruins, and the awakening of their powerful mutant ancestors. The worried guy clearly feels that very soon their entire familiar world will be completely turned upside down. The main character clearly understood that he needed to evolve much faster, as much as he physically could. The thoughtful girl simply remained silent and did not answer his questions at all. She was clearly unbearably bored during this tense moment of waiting. The system happily congratulated its esteemed master on reaching the 15th level of development, for which a blue chest with a reward was generously given out. The main character was extremely interested in what kind of mysterious, unusual skill this was. Night combat. A significant 10% improvement to night vision and overall physical strength. Although this doesn't seem like much of an improvement at the moment. Once he gets significantly stronger, the gains will be much more noticeable. The man persistently asked his boss where the strange mutant had suddenly disappeared to. The puzzled man said in confusion that he had no idea. The mutant seemed to disappear without a trace into the thick air. The young man asked worriedly if it was possible that he had some unique teleportation power. The man asked doubtfully if he was really naive to think that such an incredible phenomenon was even possible in reality. He asked anxiously about the condition of his armor after the attack. He said bitterly that he had put in so much colossal effort to get it, and some vile creature had simply bitten him. The stern man said decisively that they would immediately move on, because they had urgent, important matters to attend to. The man thought deeply about this strange situation with the mutant. He suddenly realized that something was clearly wrong here, that the fish seemed to have intelligence, and that he needed to urgently report everything to the secret organization in order to avoid falling into the clutches of the dangerous Dragon Squad. At that moment, the internet was actively discussing whether someone had really cordoned off the eastern part of the city quite recently. It seems that something strange had appeared there. Many had seen a suspiciously large number of people in black uniforms. Someone had heard in fear that a ghost had allegedly been seen there. Although it would be unlikely that so many police would have been gathered because of some ghosts. These are definitely dangerous serial killers. There is very dense traffic in the eastern part of the city, so it could only have been closed completely for something really serious and dangerous. Hualongpan became silent at that mysterious moment. When the rested Lin Hao finally woke up, he said with satisfaction that he had truly had a good and restorative sleep. Daily tasks were updated in a timely manner, regular tasks. To iron 100 cleaners, 75 out of 100 completed, so it means he completed the task or not. In the morning, it will still automatically change. The detailed map of the area has been thoroughly updated. Lin Hao began to carefully examine the updated map of the area. He had a very strange, oppressive feeling. He couldn't understand what was going on around him. He realized with alarm that it was something really big and dangerous. It is imperative to take a closer look to begin the research. Lin Hao instantly transformed into a human using his special ability. He carefully stepped out onto dry land, looking around. The confused girl had absolutely no idea what to do with this strange guy now. The majestic Dragon Mountain froze at this fateful moment. The armed soldiers shouted loudly for the operation to be carried out faster. It was necessary to immediately block all possible escape routes. The target was considered extremely dangerous. As soon as they discovered its location, they should immediately prepare for withering fire to kill. All the heavy military vehicles also moved rapidly towards their designated positions. The commanding girl spoke decisively over the radio that she knew perfectly well that there was an active pursuit on the Dragon Mountain. The stakes in the operation were too high. It was necessary to completely cordon off the entire mountain. Under no circumstances should the target be allowed to escape. The girl said with understanding that she fully understood the seriousness of the situation. Here there are clearly present characteristic traces of the secret organization of Et. They did not understand at all that in order to join this closed organization, it was necessary to first introduce a special virus into oneself to significantly improve all physical qualities and develop hidden somatic functions. The high-ranking girl finally arrived at the scene of the operation. She said firmly that Et was seriously injured. His combat power was not so high now. Special attention should be paid to the organization of Et, and under no circumstances should they be allowed to interfere with the operation. An experienced male sniper looked carefully through the optical sight at this critical moment. He took precise aim at the suspicious guy at this crucial moment of the attack. A bunch of crazy fanatics, he thought. Only such madmen are capable of their cruel methods of achieving their goals. There was a lot of powerful explosives planted there at that tense moment. They are seriously afraid that these madmen are planning to completely blow up the sacred Dragon Mountain. At this time, reconnaissance drones flew silently above them, collecting information. The attentive girl immediately drew alarming attention to this. She urgently ordered everyone to immediately activate the defense mechanisms on their armored equipment, and quickly run in different directions to disperse. Just at this critical moment, a powerful, deafening explosion occurred. Lin Hao was surprised to realize that there were a lot of armed guards here. As soon as he sneaked in here, the girl proudly said that she was an experienced hacker after all. She was genuinely interested in why he suddenly went to such a dangerous place on his own. The alarmed guy said that during the powerful explosion, he clearly felt some strange mystical force. There was definitely something mysteriously resonating with him. Did she understand the seriousness of this phenomenon? Lin Hao insistently repeated this important observation once again. He desperately can't contact the squad's screen version. The other group has completely disrupted all communications. No matter this obstacle, they still successfully blew up their commander. Now the main thing is to immediately find that wounded Et. Lin Hao was incredibly interested in these mysterious conversations. It seemed like all these different ideological groups were hunting for the same object. These two strangers look very much like fairly experienced and trained guys. If he carefully follows them, then he will definitely sooner or later get to the mysterious Et. The guy angrily told his partner that this black damn creature, if it had not damaged his protective suit, now the whole operation would have gone much easier. The bite force of that strange fish is truly no joke. And unfortunately, even the high-tech suit model number 3 is no match for it. And while they are here having long conversations, it is necessary to urgently check everything thoroughly for traces of Et. If they successfully find it, then getting a couple of new protective suits will not be a problem for them at all. It was truly an incredible superhuman speed of movement. If they were on the ground now, he wouldn't have even the slightest chance against this creature. Lin Hao was both very impressed and frightened by this display of strength. At this tense moment, someone mysterious approached him silently in the shady garden. The wary guy couldn't figure out what this strange approaching sound was. Curious, Lin Hao cautiously walked closer to get a better idea of who this person was. The surprised guy suddenly realized that it was his friend Xiao. At that very moment, she was desperately fighting with an unknown creature. The shocked Lin Hao immediately realized that this was a real abomination from the other world. The system sternly pulled him up and insistently told him to finally pull himself together. The frightened girl excitedly said that she had successfully found Et and was immediately sending the exact coordinates of his location. At this critical moment, the evil man laughed ominously. He slowly approached the victim and said with pleasure that it was the famous and brave Captain Law. He said with pleasure that it was very sad for her. He then began to attack her mercilessly and said with satisfaction that she was now definitely dead. At an unexpected moment, an enraged Lin Hao suddenly appeared and grabbed his arm tightly. He asked threateningly who it was he was going to kill in front of him. There was very little precious time left. He needed to be killed quickly with one precise blow. Lin Hao decisively literally killed him with his own weapon. The dying man asked in horror who the hell he was by nature. The man immediately realized with amazement that this strange guy was the same unusual fish with which he had recently fought desperately. He began to laugh hysterically and loudly and say that it meant that they really were similar in nature. After that, he suddenly threw a sharp weapon straight at the defenseless girl. She miraculously dodged and asked in surprise if this mysterious guy was really Lin Hao. Lin Hao instantly realized that the man would definitely not live after such an act. He hit him extremely hard at that crucial moment in the battle. The impact was so powerful that the bright light literally illuminated absolutely everything around. The frightened girl instinctively closed her eyes from the blinding light but still continued to stubbornly look at what was happening. Then Lin Hao quickly ran away, and the girl desperately shouted after him so that he would definitely hear her important words. She began to approach the scene of events, surprised and cautious. She was definitely not mistaken in her guesses. It really was him. What the hell was this strange phenomenon anyway? Lin Hao sincerely apologized to her in his mind, and sadly said that the time for their meeting had definitely not come yet. They both still had important unfinished missions. The system began to laugh at him cheerfully, and ironically say that it was incredibly touching. A small couple in love who were unable to recognize each other due to some mystical reasons. What a dramatic situation it was, although Lin Hao had something completely different in mind when they parted. The human form of the body felt completely different. Although the human form really doesn't have any special advantages, his combat skills, shoes, and analytical mindset still remain the same. The commanding girl decisively told the entire squad to be on guard. The wounded dangerous Et was missing from the scene. He must have successfully escaped during the general confusion. Everyone should immediately distribute themselves into sectors and begin an intensive search from the exact coordinates she had sent. They needed to act immediately. The system asked him with interest whether their target had indeed successfully escaped from the scene of the operation. Lin Hao knows for sure. He must be desperately searching for a spaceship to quickly escape from the planet. But where exactly is that ship? The attentive girl was very interested in this assumption. Lin Hao began to flatteringly tell the system that it was the best and most beautiful system in the whole wide world. Could it kindly help him find this mysterious ship faster? She asked skeptically how she could technically find him in such a huge area, since she was helping him, and, due to this, was theoretically able to subtly sense electrical signals. Confident Lin Hao firmly stated that he would definitely be able to sense his presence if she just tried to synchronize with his consciousness. The girl ironically asked if he really was naive to think that this was some kind of primitive Bluetooth or something like that. But still, despite all the obstacles and doubts, the devoted girl diligently began to look for what the guy persistently asked her to find. She happily said that she had successfully found it. The object was located right on top of a high mountain. She worriedly asked where he had flown off to so quickly, and the determined Lin Hao firmly said that they needed to quickly end this whole matter once and for all. Under no circumstances should this dangerous Et be allowed to escape safely. Most likely he is only the first vanguard of the invasion. It will only get worse if he is allowed to convey valuable information about Earth to his own. Then all the inhabitants of the planet will be in mortal danger. Just at this tense moment, the exhausted Et greedily drank refreshing water from a mountain spring. He suddenly noticed a school of small fish right at the bottom of the pond. After that, he quickly descended after them and they instantly died from his touch. The alarmed Lin Hao clearly smelled a very strong metallic smell of blood. It was right in front of him behind the rock. He suddenly received an important notification that the powerful force in Et's body noticeably respected his own power, which was exactly what he had been desperately looking for. It was simply great for the plan. They will certainly end this whole nightmare as soon as possible. He will strike the decisive blow while the enemy is still weak, and he will definitely kill him while he is still physically able to do so. The determined Lin Hao immediately began to attack the enemy with all his might. Et instantly grabbed the deadly weapon into his hands. Lin Hao immediately deftly knocked the weapon out of his hands. But Et immediately stretched out his hand and pulled out his weapon. Lin Hao, of course, immediately paid attention to this. He had noticed similar movements in him before, but he still didn't understand whether he had at least one real skill, or whether it was all due to the cybers. Lin Hao suddenly jumped back at this moment. Pain shot through his body and his horn began to break rapidly. Just at that moment, Et began to slowly approach him. A moment later, he disappeared completely, and almost immediately appeared in front of Lin Hao. Lin Hao opened his mouth, preparing to bite his opponent. He bit off, or rather, tore off his hand and noted with a grin that he wasn't that strong. Didn't they really have anything else to boast about except the cells? Et looked at him at that moment with cold fury. A second later, his severed arm began to quickly regenerate. He then delivered a powerful blow to Lin Hao. At that moment, the system desperately screamed at him to wake up. She asked if he really intended to die right here. She demanded that he come to his senses quickly. Lin Hao couldn't understand what was going on around him. She explained that she could no longer help him, and if he did not stop being inactive, he would inevitably die. At that moment, an enemy loomed before him. It was then that he dealt him a crushing blow. The blow was so powerful that Lin Hao pierced the rock with his body. Lin Hao had not made a single sound yet. The pain was terrible. He hadn't felt anything like it for a long time. Et asked angrily how he dared to attack him. He continued to attack Lin Hao without stopping. However, Lin Hao took a risk and deftly dodged the attack. The guy noticed that his reaction had become incredibly fast. Et laughed loudly, declaring that he was nothing but a pathetic little fish. Lin Hao literally began to emit a dazzling radiance at this moment. Et asked in bewilderment what he was doing there. Lin Hao responded by asking who he was to ask him questions. Lin Hao literally began to incinerate his enemy. It was impossible to weaken, no matter how painful it was. It was impossible to let him go under any circumstances. Lin Hao decided that he would never let him leave. After that, he slammed him straight into the ground. Lin Hao felt relieved, thinking that he was finally dead. The soldiers loudly ordered a combing of the area, promising to tear off their heads and feed them to the dogs if he was not found. Lin Hao didn't understand where so many people came from. They certainly didn't look friendly, and if they found him, nothing good would happen. A signal was emitted from them, and they asked the boss what to do if he was already dead, to which they received the answer that if someone killed him, they would skin him and bury them together. Lin Hao clearly understood that he couldn't let them discover him. Desperate times call for desperate measures. There was no other way out. Lin Hao came close to Et. He began to literally eat his body. The smell was so disgusting that it was almost impossible to eat. Let them know that a second-level green beast warrior is worth 30,000 evolution points. Although he was mentally prepared for this, 30,000 still seemed like an impressive amount. The system explained that the matter was urgent, and he urgently needed to level up to find out what awaited him for these points. The girl noted approvingly that it was not bad. Lin Hao began to ask what was going on with him. He began to transform into something much more powerful. His body turned into a fiery, scaly salamander, and he was surprised to find himself an amphibian. Lin Hao didn't fully understand how exactly this happened, but he felt that it would now be easier to move around, and his strength had noticeably increased. At that moment, people were not far from the spaceship. One of the guys told me to stay alert, wait for the boss and get the equipment. At that moment, they asked who was there, but it was too late. Everyone was dead. Ling Ho made it to dry land. The system sarcastically asked if he had received evolution points and why he was still hanging around here. Lin Hao replied that they couldn't leave the ship behind. At that moment, a guy inside was listening to music carefree. He had no idea who was there or what the hell was going on. Lin Hao walked up and asked if he was the one who wanted to skin him alive. The others started shouting at him not to come closer. Lin Hao killed them all in one fell swoop. He destroyed them to the last one. It felt like all of his abilities had been greatly enhanced after evolution. His combat power had increased several times, and he was no longer tied to water. It was simply wonderful. Lin Hao returned to his human form. It wasn't only Lesha who caused problems. Lin Hao looked around the ship and realized that he couldn't really make out anything. Then his gaze caught something curious. The guy was sure that something similar would appear here because they always start small. Lin Hao slowly walked away. Then the guy went outside. Lin Hao stopped and looked at the ship carefully. The system asked why he wasn't leaving, whether he wanted to meet with the Dragon Squad, or was planning to somehow contact them without allowing the ship to be captured. The girl noted that it was unknown when the Dragon Squad would be able to track this place. Lin Hao realized that he could lure them here. At this time, enemies began to break into the territory. The system could hardly believe that it had ever had such a high opinion of his mental abilities. She didn't understand, but asked not to blow it up yet, because they couldn't come up with a better plan. At that moment, a powerful explosion occurred. The captain asked what kind of mutant could do such a thing. The girl replied that it was a great question, and more evidence was needed. Captain Xiao was informed that they had come across intestines, and that they most likely belonged to Et. This surprised him greatly, and he became interested in whether someone had actually eaten him. He surmised with alarm that the unfortunate comrade had probably been eaten by a dangerous mutant that they had inadvertently awakened with their appearance. The girl instantly recalled that tense moment when the fearless Lin Hao resolutely dove into the deep lake to search for the missing Et. Having carefully analyzed the entire situation, she confidently concluded that the version about the mutant was unlikely, since Et could have awakened the mutated creature. But such an outcome was hardly possible. They had landed quite recently, and had not even managed to completely destroy the spaceship. She thought sensibly that it was not worth bothering her head with this now. It was much wiser to simply return to the ship, because they had already achieved considerable success. For the first time, they had managed to find an intact alien spaceship. The insightful girl realized that they couldn't investigate too deeply. Otherwise, they would definitely come across Lin Hao's trail. They never found the weapon, which caused confusion. Did these mysterious creatures really eat it? What kind of incredible nonsense is this? At that very moment, the cautious Lin Hao carefully covered the hidden weapon with large stones. The disappointed girl said bitterly that after so many exhausting efforts, there was finally hope for a solution to the problem, and the powerful weapon could not even be used. She thought about the uselessness of such unsuitable hands because they would only interfere with the mission, so for now it was better to safely hide the weapon. Since he had miraculously evolved from an ordinary fish into a perfect amphibian, it meant that water was no longer a serious obstacle for him. And he also enthusiastically noted the appearance of truly good news. Normal tasks: Pet 10 Nimble Urias, 5 out of 10 completed. Reward: White chest, Pet Historical Shrimps, 0 out of 100. Reward: again a white chest. Difficult tasks: Pet 10 Dangerous Marker Creatures, 3 out of 10. Reward: Blue chest, Pet a Menacing Mutated T-Rex, 0 out of 1. Reward: Purple chest, Pet the only mysterious green beast of the first level. Reward of a significant increase in endurance. Pet the only rare green beast of the second level. Reward of a significant increase in vision. Absorb 10 mutated creatures. Reward: Blue chest. The protagonist thought in bewilderment about the absurdity of this madness. Just yesterday, he barely overcame and ate a beast of that level, and now it was presented as a simple task leading to certain death. The system mockingly asked about his ability to complete the task, and suggested skipping it if it was so obviously difficult. The system warned him about the unpleasant feeling of an empty form when he missed even one note of the task, so he should quickly eat something and stop uselessly whining. The protagonist silently agreed with the logical arguments of the system. The puzzled system couldn't figure out why he didn't pounce and eat all those mutated, disgusting ribs, because he hated them with all his soul. He calmly replied that there was no need to hurry, since there was still a whole bucket full of fish left, and he would certainly finish all these fish after carefully completing the preparations. The cheerful man spoke loudly about everything being ready, and cordially offered to have a glass of strong drink, adding about the obligatory consumption of alcohol before returning home. The puzzled man suddenly tensed up, not understanding the origin of the strange, frightening sound. It was at this tense moment that the hungry protagonist energetically began to eat all the fish available. These disgusting worms suddenly landed right on the unlucky man, just like the previous victims. He was frightened, and decided that it must have been an evil ghost from ancient legends. The man expressed confidence that the pursuer would return for them, and that they needed to wait for his decisive retribution. He was in a panic, and could not understand the intentions of the mysterious organization that had been trying to catch him for a long time, and had finally decided to act openly. He thought with alarm about the nature of this strange anomaly, and the possibility of an ill-considered release of another batch of mud predatory fish. He began to doubt whether what was happening was a hallucination from extreme hunger or a truly serious phenomenon. The surprised Lin Hao could not understand the source of the sudden appearance of aggressive crayfish in this isolated place. Naturally, these unusual creatures showed extreme aggression against him from the first moment of their meeting. One of the largest crayfish immediately tried to attack him with its powerful claws. Having carefully studied the opponents, the protagonist quickly identified them as dangerous mutated crayfish of unknown origin. After a long and agonizing time of waiting and searching, he mentally noted the appearance of something truly delicious, regretting the lack of seasoning and wishing for something spicy. Meanwhile, all these terrifying creatures continued to move relentlessly towards him, clearly preparing to attack. The protagonist, having assessed the situation, decisively decided to use his fire ability at this critical moment. He clearly understood the need for a decisive response to the aggression of these sea crabs. After his victory, he absorbed the young mutated crabs, gaining several valuable evolutionary currents for his development. Suddenly, one of the remaining mutants quickly attacked him from the flank. The protagonist instantly understood the danger of their shiny, sharp claws. Realizing that it was unacceptable to relax even for a second, he noted the contrast between the apparent bulkiness and the actual speed and dexterity of their movements. The alert protagonist carefully noticed one particularly large crab moving straight towards him with clearly unfriendly intentions. Confident in his abilities, the protagonist knew for sure that he could accurately hit the attacking creature. At the decisive moment, he grabbed the crab by the shell with lightning speed. The amazed protagonist did not at all understand the possibility of the existence of such an incredible creature in nature. He considered the grave consequences for anyone who had dared to grab him by the sensitive horn earlier. But now, with the addition of new functional limbs, his daily life has become much easier and more comfortable. The collected protagonist was fully prepared to firmly grab the enemy with his powerful limbs. Then he quickly attacked the confused enemy with all his accumulated strength. The dexterous protagonist skillfully escaped from the cunning trap set by the enemy. Not resigned to defeat, the enraged crab tried again to grab him with lightning speed with its huge claws. The protagonist, who had become indescribably furious, loudly demanded the immediate death of this creature. After the powerful attack, literally nothing remained of the unfortunate creature except scattered fragments of shell. The hungry protagonist was determined to eat them all, leaving no one alive. The protagonist asked the system, puzzled about its opinion regarding the combat capability of this creature, noting the pain in his teeth from the strength of its shell. The difficult task of absorbing 10 mutated creatures with a reward in the form of a blue chest was successfully completed. The satisfied protagonist laughed contentedly about the double benefit of being full of delicious crayfish and completing an important task, comparing what was happening to a fairy tale. The curious protagonist immediately opened the blue chest he received as a reward. The protagonist playfully asked the system if she wanted to see a spectacular trick using new abilities. She looked at him in surprise, not understanding his intentions for the demonstration. After this mysterious sentence, Lin Hao suddenly used an extremely powerful magical fire. He spoke admiringly of the ability to produce a strong, bright flame even underwater, musing on the consequences of using this ability on land, and the need for caution to avoid serious problems if an entire mountain were accidentally set on fire. The attentive protagonist suddenly saw a mysterious creature in front of him, actively eating small fish nearby. He categorically stated his confidence that these creatures were spreading not only in the Han River. He worried about the possibility of the entire vast Longinus region being overrun with dangerous mutants that would pose a serious threat to the population. The system warned of the presence of 2 hostile organizations near him, emphasizing the danger of going out onto open land at this time. The sensible Lin Hao spoke of the low danger of the small crayfish and the slowness of their growth to a threatening size, expressing his incomprehension of the reasons for their deliberate release into a clean river. He suggested a strategic intention to gain precious time. He thought about the possibility of a clever distraction of the formidable squad of dragons and their goals. He was resolutely reflecting on his indifference to their strength compared to his own. He confidently declared his attachment to the cozy Hualong Pond and his categorical refusal to move due to threats. The determined Lin Hao suddenly began to run rapidly in a certain direction. The puzzled system curiously asked about his plans, to which he casually replied about a sudden desire for fresh fish, especially tasty mudfish. The alarmed man spoke loudly to those around him about the irresponsible spread of dangerous mutants everywhere. He explained that mudfish, despite their small size, could easily penetrate the body of an unsuspecting person with disastrous consequences. He ordered his subordinates to immediately close all accessible waterways and wait attentively for further instructions from the general headquarters. Alarmed scientists watched the critical situation unfold at this tense moment. They carefully reviewed the shocking video of an unknown mutant's sudden attack on civilians. The serious man spoke with authority about the findings of the advanced AI's detailed analysis regarding the creature's impressive 120-meter span and incredible 2,000-degree outer skin temperature, noting its ability to release a special golden energy that produced incredible heat in the absence of precise scientific data. The worried girl asked hopefully about the possibility of tracking the exact location of the monster and successfully attacking it. The man shook his head and replied that this was impossible due to the creature's excessive speed of movement and its inconstancy in one place. Analyzing the latest data on the creature's rapid movements, it became clear that it was moving purposefully towards the Atlantic beyond the state territory, which was only one of many pressing issues that required attention, along with more important and urgent matters. The tall man introduced himself as Captain Luo, the respected leader of the special research team from Longyin, and reported the recent discovery of mysterious ruins of an ancient civilization in their city, and the presence of a really big surprise. The excited girl enthusiastically reported the successful capture of an intact alien ship from Earth. They all expressed extreme surprise at this news and asked incredulously about the method of achieving success, considering the usual instantaneous destruction of such ships upon landing, leaving only useless debris, as opposed to this unique case with an absolutely intact specimen. She explained the great luck that the mysterious Et had no time to destroy the ship due to the surprise attack. She suggested an inhuman origin for the attack, noting the involvement of another powerful being and expressing confidence in the involvement of a truly powerful and dangerous mutant. She wondered out loud about another oddity, the mysterious disappearance of the legendary battle sword, suggesting the possibility of the trickery of the El people or the absorption of the sword by a treacherous creature. The insightful girl thought deeply about the mysterious Lin Hao, considering the possibility of his identity with the powerful mutant. The informed man spoke confidently about the size and equipment of the headquarters in Longyin, confirming the suspicions regarding the involvement of the mutated creature in the mysterious murder of the enigmatic reporting on the prompt dispatch of a special detachment for his immediate capture, and the lack of sense in worrying. While the girl realized the need for an urgent return instead of a long stay in the current place, she suddenly began shouting loudly to the professor about the possibility of an immediate injection of the experimental virus, emphasizing the benefits of carrying out the procedure as quickly as possible. The surprised professor responded that it was technically possible to fulfill the request, subject to a final decision and readiness for the consequences. The determined girl firmly declared her full acceptance of responsibility for any possible consequences of this risky experiment. At the same time, the tireless Lin Hao was actively hunting for big fish in the deep waters. He noted with satisfaction that the thorough cleaning of the reservoir from mutants was almost complete. The caring system spoke sympathetically about the inevitability of fatigue from such intensive work, both for him and for herself. The exhausted Lin Hao complained about the burden of constantly caring for the well-being of the common people, while simultaneously exterminating the vile abomination and successfully evading the elite dragon squad for the second grueling day in a row, comparing it to a truly indescribable hell. The system encouraged him, noting the successful stroking of almost all the mudfish and a significant increase in his combat level. The surprised Lin Hao couldn't understand the possibility of receiving another unexpected reward for completing a difficult task. Curious Lin Hao opened the well-deserved purple chest with mysterious contents with trepidation. He noted with concern a sudden, intense itching in his head, suggesting the possibility of a radical change in the structure of the brain. He suddenly had a powerful new skill called Berg, a special mode that gave a significant boost to combat power for 10 seconds, followed by a strong weakening, requiring 24 hours of mandatory training, and a spiked defensive scale appeared. But Lin Hao was perplexed by the system's reluctance to his brave, deadly fight against opponents. At that moment, they felt some kind of earthquake that shook the ground under their feet, causing everything around to tremble. The system informed him that a powerful explosion nearby had opened a passage into the cave. Lin Hao noticed that a cave had indeed opened up right next to them, as if it was destined to do so. It was just luck that it happened at that moment when he could crawl through the crack that had formed. Lin Hao realized that there was a dead end in front of him, but it was a strange dead end where something was wrong. Lin Hao resolutely tried to break down this wall, hoping that it would give in to his efforts. He noticed that it was quite light inside, despite the dark atmosphere of the surrounding space. Lin Hao couldn't figure out what was hidden inside this mysterious place, but he was determined to find the answer. At that moment he realized it was a T-Rex, and its presence immediately filled the air with alarm and horror. Just at that moment the ice seemed to begin to crack, making loud sounds, like a harbinger of trouble. Lin Hao realized that he was finished. The dragon had returned, and now he had to face the inevitable. It was a fucking T-Rex, and its appearance meant that everything around would change. He asked if she could assess his fighting abilities, because that was the only way to understand what he was capable of. He said that there were no signs of life, and it would be impossible to find out more. But he clearly saw how the monster's eyes moved, and how the ice broke. Perhaps it was the ice that was jamming the signal. At that moment, the system noticed something, as if its attention was drawn to something important. The system began to take notice that an unknown combat creature had been detected, and the danger became more and more obvious. At this point, water began to flow in and its level rose rapidly, creating a threat of flooding. Even a rip current can't penetrate this cave. So, is there really a creature that can control seawater? At that moment, a bright glow could be seen, which seemed unnatural and disturbed the dark atmosphere. Lin Hao was very surprised, because what he saw was something greater than he could have imagined. He knew he had to remain calm and not panic in order to maintain a chance to teleport back and avoid mortal danger. He decided to see who wanted to fight him so much, not suspecting that he would face a much more serious enemy. Lin Hao broke out of the whirlpool, overcoming the flow of water that almost swallowed him up. He found himself in another dimension, and this place surprised him with its unusual silence and tranquility. And it just disappeared like that, leaving no trace behind, as if it was just a nightmare. Lin Hao understood that the creature was at least 2 meters long, and the mutated creatures had heightened sensitivity, allowing them to detect other creatures, and by absorbing such creatures, special skills could be obtained. It was just great, because now he could only guess how many evolution points he would get. Such a fish that could control seawater was a real mystery to him. The fish began to attack the main characters, and its powers were unpredictable. He didn't understand what kind of creature this was and what it could expect from him. He couldn't understand why the hell these bubbles were following him, as if something terrible was hidden behind it. At that moment, the bubble touched him, and his body felt a strange tension. After this, there was a powerful explosion and he was electrocuted, causing him to wince in pain. Lin Hao said it wasn't painful, but the sensation was disgusting, and it interfered with his control of movement. Then he was shocked again and felt the energy flow through his body. Lin Hao decided that he had had enough, and decided to use his power to end this once and for all. Let them not dare to interfere with him. He was ready to fight and was not going to give up. At that moment, another creature appeared, ready to join the fight. Lin Hao asked, "What now?" He wasn't going to stop there. This surprised him, because in front of him were two mutants who were smart enough to work together. He couldn't understand if they had decided to unite to defeat him, but he was ready for a decisive fight. Otherwise, he risked not getting out of here alive. The prickly scales were nothing to him, and he could deal with it. Lin Hao was curious about fire, whether he was afraid of it or not, and whether it would be his weakness. The fish was ready to attack him again, and its intentions were no less dangerous. Lin Hao said that he asked for it, and now he has to go through it. Let him get bubbles with fins, it will only add to his problems. Lin Hao moved as close as possible to him at this moment, feeling the tension build up. Then he stubbornly grabbed it by the mouth, not thinking about the possible consequences. Lin Hao began to release flames directly into his mouth, hoping that this would give him an advantage. Lin Hao asked what you will tell me because the answer was important to him, and then he finally stopped, realizing that the moment had come for a decisive step. Lin Hao asked if he liked the explosion so much, then let him create another one to test his strength and survival. The system replied that it was unknown what exactly was hiding in the sea, and the smell of blood could attract even more mutants. Let him now pet everyone in his path and decide what to do with it. The mutated mullet was absorbed, and Lin Hao received 25,000 evolution points, but despite this, he thought it was worth it. The girls said that they needed to get out of here quickly, because the sea was too dangerous, and this place would not bring them anything good. One timid lizard has escaped, but it must be caught so as not to miss the chance to use its power. There's a base somewhere nearby where they breed mutated creatures, and the guy needs to be sure he's willing to take the risk to get there. The boss said that he doesn't care if anything happens. He will just teleport to a safe place so as not to get into a dangerous situation. The main forces were operating somewhere over there, and Lin Hao wasn't sure if they would provide assistance if needed. Why does it suddenly seem to him that he and Masha are connected in some way? And it can't be a simple coincidence. Just then, the tentacles flew back at him and he barely managed to dodge the attack. Lin Hao came to see what kind of creature it was that dared to attack him in such a dangerous place. Then he saw a huge crab in front of him that was devouring its own being. And Lin Hao thought that his dangers were just beginning. Lin Hao turned his attention to this creature. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, he noticed a pressure so strong that it was even more terrible than all the threat he had expected. The guy understood that he needed to run away from here urgently before he found himself in even greater danger. Lin Hao began to run, his body moving as if he was on the verge of survival. He didn't understand what was going on at all and why telepathy wasn't working, making him feel helpless. As it turned out, he was outside the teleportation zone, and now he needed to get to the safe zone to avoid getting trapped. It was better for her to leave as soon as possible, because the ocean was extremely dangerous, and the guy knew that he needed to listen to her if he wanted to stay alive. Lin Hao continued to run, not knowing what was waiting for him around the next corner. He slightly grazed the crab, but had already pierced its scales, which gave him a chance to escape. Lin Hao knew that he had to run faster to avoid the inevitable fight. The crab almost managed to grab him, but Lin Hao was too fast to fall into its clutches. Longinus Reservoir. The guy said he was scared shitless because his life was hanging by a thread. The system said, okay, it has a teleport, but almost lost its life saving its own skin. The first pancake is always lumpy. He had no experience in the open ocean yet, and next time, he will be more careful. Why she teleported back to Huolong Pond, she said she didn't know. Maybe he accidentally made a mistake with the location and ended up at the wrong point. Was it his imagination, or were they mutated sea loaches that were multiplying so quickly and becoming a threat? Apparently, there are still some of these slippery bastards left that can still pose a threat. Lin Hao decided that they needed to be burned alive to prevent them from surviving and spreading. He asked if he was wasting his time on such a trivial matter, but she found it hard to understand when she was losing her motivation, and he didn't want anyone to fall into his trap. Lin Hao realized that something was wrong. He had relaxed too much, and now he didn't notice how he too was in danger. Where did they get sea loaches from? Did they decide to bury this city or what? Lin Hao headed down, preparing for further trials and dangers. He said that his stomach was already hurting from them, and these creatures would definitely become his headache. Lin Hao began to prepare for something bigger to respond to the emerging threats. He wanted to burn strangers alive to get rid of everyone who stood in his way. Lin Hao began to use flames to attack the enemies and destroy them without a trace. Their bodies began to float to the surface, and this was a sign that the fight was just beginning. The system asked if he thought he had caused such a scene, but she would not understand who had done it. He had actually started to cleanse the world of mutants and get rid of pests. All the marine fauna here died out. The loaches devoured them all, leaving only darkness and chaos around. Lin Hao could understand what kind of people were controlling these creatures and why they were interfering in these events. The man asked another what they were going to do after catching these idiots, because the mutated loaches had already released several rivers, and with their rate of reproduction, they would soon flood everything. Soon all the city's rivers will be overflowing with mutants, and then there will be no salvation. The main character was very angry that they were talking so calmly about the lives of an entire city, as if it didn't matter. He laughed and said that now Zhao Chenkong and his people would have to be nervous because the situation was getting out of control. When these mutations reach their peak, there will be no time left for anyone to escape, and the ruins of an ancient civilization may become their only refuge. The main character became interested in the ruins of the civilization, because perhaps that mutated T-Rex, which can reveal more secrets of this world, went there. This planet is going to have to evolve anyway, so they're just speeding up the process to gain new capabilities. He thought that most of the city's inhabitants would not survive, and it was interesting to see what they would do in such conditions. Lin Hao threw a jar at him without giving him time to prepare. Naturally, the man became furious and immediately began to rush about shouting, "Who did this? Who dared to do this to him?" Lin Hao, like a shadow, instantly appeared in front of them without even noticing how it happened. But the man was prepared for such a turn of events and immediately took out his weapon, hoping to repel the attack. He furiously thrust his blade straight into the protagonist's chest. Of course, the blade cut through his skin, leaving a deep wound, but he was not going to give up. The protagonist, gritting his teeth, realized that the man was clearly pushing him, but he was ready. The man, who was already lying on the ground, barely managed to utter the words that Lin Hao was a real monster that could not be defeated. After that, Lin Hao, without wasting any time, began to use fire, filling the space with a firestorm. Lin Hao burned the man to the ground, and then immediately switched to the second opponent. The protagonist asked with cold determination who else here considered himself a monster ready to fight. The man was stunned that he had been talking all this time. The protagonist coldly stated that it was all over for this man. As it turned out, the man had a camera installed on his glasses, and everything that happened was being recorded. The camera captured his every move, every detail of what was happening. The protagonist said that they will pay for this, and this is not the end. At that moment, the man quickly touched his glasses, trying to stop the recording. Then he laughed with a grin and said that he did not have long to live in this world. The protagonist, without losing his composure, said that he was eternal and asked who this man was who dared to think such a thing about himself. At this moment, the system, as always, was next to him, ready to intervene. The girl, with an ironic smile, asked him if he should just not say that he was going to eat these mutants, because they were completely abnormal if they considered people disgusting to taste, he thought, realizing how strange her words sounded. They continue to claim that the big words are breaking into freedom. But for the city, sea loaches still do not pose a problem. The girl suggested that perhaps he was controlling these mutants, not allowing them to develop peacefully. At this moment, Lin Hao realized that it was all about Et. Et was a simple scout, but his main force was still approaching. The protagonist, with determination in his voice, asked if they were really trying to awaken all the mutated creatures from the ruins of civilization and take control of the entire city. They needed to urgently go to the mouth of the river to find a way to get into these ruins. At this moment, the main character suddenly noticed something important in the surroundings. He grabbed his head, realizing that not everything was as he expected. Suddenly his head began to spin and he felt a strange sensation. It was at this point that the girls were injected with the virus, and its effects began to show. The capsules they were in opened, allowing them to exit. She came out of the capsule, and Old Man Zhang, looking at her carefully, asked how she felt after everything that had happened. The girl took a step, but immediately felt her leg almost give way. She said her body felt lighter, like it had been relieved of excess weight, and it became much faster. The man, smiling, added that her body had now become much stronger and was ready for new challenges. He congratulated her on being injected with a high concentration of the virus, and although she should have been going through the training at headquarters, the situation required urgent intervention, so he would explain everything along the way. It was 2 o'clock in the morning after the injection, and she finally woke up. 3 hours ago, the L organization attacked their network, trying to obtain information about the mutated creatures and their evolutionary processes. The girl, as soon as she realized what was happening, said that they finally didn't show up. She was angry at these damn fanatics, who believed that viruses were the path of human evolution. These people were ready to do anything just to speed up this process. They are led by the prince of the strongest, and only those who survive an overdose of the virus can join their movement. The man, not understanding how this had happened, said in surprise that he himself did not know why they were now interested in it. But the status of mixtures that could lead humanity to a new evolution seemed to have attracted everyone's attention. The man checked something at that moment, trying to figure out the situation. He told her to look for a suitable blade, because now they would need something serious. She asked him if there was any real difference between them and L's organization. The man replied that they were doing this only for themselves, and no one would stop them. And they, in turn, do everything to protect others. The girl went inside, deciding that it was better not to waste time. He shouted at her not to delay and to choose as quickly as possible, because the mutated creature they were tracking had already been captured, and Longinth was waiting for her to deal with it. The girl, still not understanding what this meant, prepared for the next step. The main character woke up and looked around, unable to understand where he was and what had happened to him. As it turned out, it was he who was caught, and he found himself in the very center of this nightmare. They finally caught him, and all this was made possible by a new device developed by the general staff. But where did this mutation come from? Why does he now look like some kind of dragon and not like a human? The main character began to say that he never thought that he would eventually be caught, and even more so that it would happen to him. The system asked what would happen now, because soon he would be sent to the lab, where he would be cut into small pieces and studied. The main thing now was to get to the ruins of civilization, but he did not know what to do next. At this moment, a girl came up and spoke to Zhao Chengchong. She calmly said that he had reported the situation, and now action was needed. Blood immediately turned his attention to her, noticing her determined look. He said that they should put him to sleep first. Otherwise, there would be problems with transporting him, and that would only complicate the task. All the soldiers aimed at him, ready for any turn of events. She said the targets were worried, and everyone should be prepared because the situation could change at any moment. At that moment, someone called her, and she instantly turned around. The girl, with anxiety in her eyes, immediately realized with tears in her eyes that it was Lin Hao. She felt her heart sink as she knew immediately that it was him, and now she couldn't believe her eyes. The man, in a confident tone, said that everything was fine, the perimeter was clear, and they could move on. The girl could not believe that it was really him, her beloved, who had miraculously returned to her. The main character began to say what he wanted, but before his words could come out, he was immediately interrupted. The system shut his mouth and said that he didn't want anything, because there were too many people here. If he dared to show his weakness, maybe the girl would think about saving him, but not the Dragon Squad. They would lock him in the laboratory and turn him into a guinea pig, and nothing could be changed. Lin Hao said that it was almost impossible to communicate like this because he had so much to say, but time was running out. The system assured him that he would still have time. Let him at least listen to it now. The protagonist called her again, his voice full of pain and despair. The girl began to approach him, closer and closer, but with each step her heart beat faster. She asked him what had happened to him, what he had to go through, and he replied that as long as he saw her, everything was not in vain. Just at that moment, stars began to fall in the background, creating a magical and eerie moment in the air. The main character could not understand how this was possible. A falling star in the middle of the day. Everything seemed absurd and unreal. Then there were several powerful explosions and the earth shook. The main character, shocked by what was happening, began to shout about the ruins of an ancient civilization, hoping that this would somehow help. The girl told them to contact headquarters immediately because something was wrong in the ancient ruins. She didn't know what had happened to him, but she was sure it was urgent and she didn't know what to do next. She trusted him, but now she couldn't take risks thoughtlessly, because other people also needed her protection. At that moment the thread broke, and the main character, unable to withstand the tension, fell into the water. The protagonist said that he would wait for her at Huolong Pond, and that she should come as soon as possible. The girl was left completely alone, her heart beating heavily from worry. A man standing nearby said that they had been attacked again, but perhaps they would be luckier next time. The girl, taking up arms, said that everyone had gathered, and the active detachment was heading to the ancient ruins, despite all the risks. The system asked if I needed to go to the ruins right now. Why did he come back? The main character was sure that they needed this sword, and without it, they would not be able to win. It was as if a loud mole had been heard, and the earth had begun to shake, as if a whole fleet of aliens were approaching. The protagonist grabbed his weapon and moved to the side, preparing for any threat. The guy tried to understand what it was that attracted everyone to this place, to Lingen. He received a notification that an unknown hostile creature had been detected, and the situation was becoming increasingly tense. He had already checked all of Hualong. Where could such creatures have come from? At that moment, something appeared from above, dark and sudden. The main character thought, the ancient ruins are so important for everyone, but why come here if the dangers are getting stronger? At that moment, some creature asked if he was already awake, ready to fight. The system reported that a hostile creature had been spotted, and its combat strength was exceptionally high. He was very surprised because there was a being stronger than him, and this was unusual. His partner, noticing his reaction, asked what was going on that made him so surprised. The protagonist immediately collected his thoughts and replied that he needed to be prepared for any turn of events. But just at that moment, an unknown, dark silhouette appeared in front of them, ready for battle. Just at that moment he managed to say that it seemed that it was an awakened one, and his appearance was not at all accidental. The main character watched what was happening with mockery, laughing and saying that his master would be here very soon, and then everything would change. He asked what the hell this corvée was, because he didn't understand anything, and that if he couldn't figure it out, he would simply kill them all. The protagonist began to use flames, but they easily defended themselves, as if they knew his every move. The partner began to say that he was not sure that it was they who woke up these creatures. But something was clearly wrong. At this moment, the protagonist began to approach them again, despite their protection. The main character, of course, would like to finish with them as quickly as possible. But he understood that everything would not be so simple. The main character began to destroy one of them, intending to leave no trace. He grabbed him right by the head, squeezing tightly, as if wanting to tear him out of the very heart of the fight. After that, the guy literally tore his head off, decisively and without regret. The protagonist asked the second one if he would dare to challenge him too, because it was now too late to save himself. He realized it at that moment when his fist clenched, and without saying a word, he pointed his finger at him. The main character was immediately attacked, as if he had become everyone's target at once. After that, the guy disappeared without leaving a trace, as if he had dissolved into thin air. The protagonist realized that he was in great pain from what happened, and his body responded with pain. The main character could not understand how they made such a big explosion that could destroy everything around. He still didn't understand how they had created such a powerful whirlpool that had sucked him in. He is an amphibian, so falling is not a problem for him. But the elements were too strong. It seemed like this whirlpool was carrying him somewhere. But he didn't understand in which direction he was now. The system, of course, was present near him, not leaving him in trouble. She protected him with a protective sphere, allowing him to remain safe despite all the dangers. She said he had a knack for timing, but right now he had nothing to do anyway. Too much uncertainty. The soldiers were on alert, awaiting orders, and the tension in the air was palpable. The man said that according to information from the headquarters, they had detected at least 3 spaceships, and there were clearly more of these ships than they expected. The Dragon Oat Mountains were increasingly targeting the ancient ruins. The man told her to wait here for the people from headquarters, and he and the squad would go on reconnaissance to check all communications and report if anything happened. So far, only 2 frozen mutated T-Rexes have been discovered in the ancient ruins of the city. And so far, the Dragon Squad has not been able to break the ice to thoroughly study them and understand what is happening. Their goal was not just to wake up these creatures, but then why so many ships? What are they hiding? Are there really only ruins left in this city? Or is there something they don't know about? She turned to Old Man Zhang and said that their target was not only the T-Rexes, there were also ancient ruins that they did not know about yet. This time, the headquarters has sent special forces, and they need to work together to hold the Dragon Mountain to prevent a catastrophe. At that moment, someone turned to the 2 of them, not giving them a second of rest. The man introduced himself as Li Ye, the captain of a combat unit from another squad, and immediately offered his services. The soldier asked the boss if they had miscalculated and now had to prepare for the worst. The man said that they would wait a little longer because a new batch was due to arrive soon, and everything would be decided in the next few minutes. The soldier said that here it was, the meteorite, and the man said that they were like clockwork, the time had come. He informed Captain Lo that they had not detected any targets, but were beginning to intercept them. The entire operation was under threat. Just at that moment they shot at him, not expecting such a turn of events. There was a powerful explosion and the earth shook as if from the blow of a giant hammer. The man ordered to comb the entire area, leaving no corners. After that, explosions began to occur again, and everything around was filled with chaos. He told them to go ahead, giving them a warm welcome, because no one could be prepared for such an attack. The man reported that there was a ship ahead that had not been discovered before. They all surrounded him instantly, ready to act. They saw that there was not a single scratch on the ship. Although it had just taken a direct hit from a missile, the man was confused. Exactly the same as the one they found earlier. Completely undamaged, the missile hit the target right on target, and it remained undamaged. Where is its trace? They began to wait, sensing that something was brewing. But they didn't know what it was. Then the creature jumped out like a shadow, suddenly breaking through the darkness. The man immediately started shooting at him without thinking. The soldiers began to shoot in exactly the same way, acting in a coordinated manner on the signal. The creature quickly approached the first soldier, its steps confident and determined. It cut him in half without any difficulty, like a knife through butter. Then the creature began to slowly and confidently approach them, threatening with its entire appearance. The man began to get nervous. His eyes never left the creature. He could not believe what was happening. The man said that he himself had insistently begged, not understanding what was happening now. At this point, the creature pulled out an even more deadly weapon, preparing for its next attack. The man, without wasting time, began to fight with the creature, trying to somehow delay it. Even if he dies, he will take this creature with him to the grave, not leaving it alive. The man shouted loudly that the soldiers had opened fire, but they still could not harm the creature. After this, the creature activated a protective sphere, creating a powerful force field around itself. He began to say that they were pathetic natives. Their fighting power was simply insignificant and did not pose a threat to him. At this point, the man continued to defend himself with desperate efforts, not wanting to give up. At this moment, the main character appeared. His appearance was unexpected and sudden. The man shouted at him to attack the creature quickly, as it was too dangerous. And just at that moment, the creature, having lost its balance, fell to the ground, leaving everyone bewildered. The man was stunned to see that it was Lin Hao standing in front of him and not someone else. He said that he was greatly overestimating himself if he thought he could win. After this, he immediately took action, aiming his forces at destroying the threat. But the protagonist used fire to prevent the creature from approaching the soldiers, effectively blocking its path. Lin Hao, watching this, said that it seemed like he had really underestimated him. After this, the guy began to approach the creature, his steps full of determination and confidence. Lin Hao easily bit his weapon in half as if it was made of paper. He asked what kind of creature it was, who and what awakened him from his long sleep. Lin Hao made a decision at this moment, and without wasting any time, took the initiative into his own hands. Lin Hao quickly and accurately pulled his hand back in 1 second, neutralizing the enemy. The guy started saying that he wasn't going to answer, that Trash wasn't capable of anything without his toys. Lin Hao began to ask what their plan was, what they were going to do with this creature. The creature began to laugh, claiming that the hunt would soon begin, and that there was nothing he could do about it. The protagonist asked what kind of hunt this was and insistently demanded an answer. The creature only continued to laugh as if his words meant nothing. Lin Hao approached him at this moment, his gaze full of determination and confidence. Just at that moment, a spear flew towards them. Lin Hao quickly returned, but it killed the creature. Lin Hao turned and asked who was there, clearly ready for more threats. It was that same captain, and he told Captain Xiao that he would cover him in this situation. The man could not understand what this was, what was happening around him, and what he should do next. The daughters started shouting to Captain Xiao that it was Captain Li Ye from the general headquarters and he was sent to help them, so he shouldn't worry. Lin Hao realized that the girl shouted to let everyone know where he was from. The headquarters didn't know about him, so he needed to escape quickly. The girl was holding something in her hands at that moment, preparing to use it at the right moment. She then quickly threw it away, turning her attention to the situation. She began shouting at Captain Li to be careful, as the threat had not yet passed. After that, the captain noticed that Lin Hao had left, his presence disappearing from their sight. The girl asked in mock surprise if he had run away, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. She said that they would still have a chance to bring him together. But that was not the main thing now. The man asked where the hell the nurse was, because everyone here needed help. The situation was critical. Lin Hao stood alone, watching the night moon, his thoughts far from this world. The system asked him what he thought about Et's words, trying to understand his decision. This planet is nothing more than a huge hunting ground. Pitiful bugs. It's hard to even call them prey. Rather just food for stronger creatures. Like the royal hunting grounds where wild animals are kept for entertainment, they awaken powerful mutants just for the thrill of the hunt. So, the 7 mutated ones are the result of their actions. But what about him? Is he really just part of their system? No idea. He probably doesn't know. Only that all 3 sides of the conflict have their eyes on him. The protagonist does not believe that there is a deep-sea route to the Dragon Mountain in Hualong. He always thought that it was an artificial pond. The main screen began to remember how the system saved him, and that all this happened because he was at the center of these events. he received a notification from the system that he could enter a state of rage, which greatly increased his strength for 10 seconds. After the tax was applied, a strong weakening followed. But if he took serious damage, he could activate this state again for 20 seconds. This meant that if he took a lot of damage, he would not have to wait for the skill to recharge, which was, of course, very useful. Now, it seemed, there was no need to worry too much, since he had a powerful option to strengthen his powers at critical moments. The girl said that he was really lucky, but the guy, not understanding, asked what the pink chest lying nearby was. He got a new observation skill that allowed him to find out basic information about an object at a great distance. With such a skill, any enemy would be in the palm of his hand, and he would be able to think out a strategy in advance. It was awesome and very useful. Lin Hao asked the system if they had stopped or would continue moving forward. He heard the words of a man who, even if he died here, promised to take this creature with him. It was strange, and as if they were specially dragged along the shortest route from Hualong to the Dragon Mountain. Lin Hao asked what was going on. The system reminded him of the hunting grounds and prey, clarifying that they thought the mutants were sleeping in the ruins, and that he himself was an example of the level. It turns out that they just want to abandon him in these lands, as part of the game, nothing more. So this means that this planet is just a part of their game, where they are watching his actions, and he doesn't even know all the rules. Lin Hao took notice of what was happening, feeling that something important was brewing. Apparently, they were an easy snack for these creatures, and the real hunters had not yet arrived. The vanguard photo was getting ready for the hunting grounds. It was necessary to sort this out quickly before things got even more dangerous. Lin Hao couldn't understand what was happening, why the Dragon Mountain seemed to be falling apart. He realized that some kind of giant crevice was opening up, and this was a harbinger of something terrible. At that moment, some kind of creature, gigantic and menacing, appeared right above them. The captain stopped near this creature, not knowing what to do next. The creature laughed and said that people don't even know what kind of dangerous creatures are sleeping here in the dungeon. The captain asked what their purpose was, what they were doing here. The creature replied that it would arrive soon and not everyone would remain alive. He wasn't sure about himself, but he was sure he wouldn't see them again. Just at that moment, the second creature, having come to an agreement with the first, also attacked them. But the captain, with ease and skill, cut off his head, eliminating the threat. The girl told Captain Lee that she was certainly not familiar with the general staff's battle tactics, but fighting alone was clearly not in keeping with protocol. He too was not thrilled that he had to fight alone, but the methods of the Dragon Squad did not suit him, and he decided to act in his own way. The girl aggressively asked him what he was talking about, clearly unhappy with this decision. He asked if they saw the mutant they had released. That could be a violation of the plan. The creature said that suit number 3 was ready. It laughed, adding that their strength was only enough for such primitive work, and nothing more. The captain said they had been notified of the possible need to capture Et for questioning, and now, at last, the right chance had presented itself. At that moment, something surprised him greatly, making him think. The girl could not understand what kind of strange roar was heard in the distance. The creature said that it seemed like reinforcements were coming to help. At that moment, the creature began to burst out from under the ground, as if breaking through layers of soil. It turned out to be an earth dragon, and its fighting power was incredible, which immediately caught the eye. Lin Hao realized that this was a creature of incredible power. It was immediately obvious from both its appearance and strength. He started shouting that it was called an earth dragon, but in fact it was just a giant overgrown worm. The worm wasted no time in continuing to attack, wriggling and striking. Lin Hao, of course, began to retreat, not wanting to get hit. He said it was good that he came back, because one bite like that and nothing would have remained of the scales. The worm made terrifying sounds, as if it was ready to tear everything around it apart. He began to move towards the main character, as if aiming at him. The guy didn't understand how this creature could watch them if it had no eyes, and what was going on at all. Lin Hao didn't understand why the creature accelerated so much at this moment, although it shouldn't have. Luckily, he managed to get back in time and appeared to have avoided a direct hit again. Lin Hao then noticed something important, trying to assess the situation. This time he failed to dodge and the blow hit the target. The blow was so strong that he was instantly thrown back and barely managed to stay on his feet. Lin Hao didn't even have time to do anything before the creature dealt another powerful blow. The guy was just curious how it was possible to dodge something like that, because it wasn't just an attack. Then the worm literally grabbed him with its powerful jaws, leaving no chance for salvation. After that, he threw it into the ground again, as if discarding an unnecessary object. Of course, Lin Hao didn't have time to do anything again, and his opponent continued to act at incredible speed. Lin Hao laughed, declaring that they had played around enough and it was time for it all to end. as he didn't want to waste any more time. Now it was his turn to act, and he was going to use all his strength to take control of the situation. Lin Hao bit the worm, but at this moment, he realized that this attack would not have the effect he expected. He felt his body heating up and his strength quickly waning, but at the same time he knew he had to keep fighting. The worm, without any particular effort, easily threw Lin Hao aside as if he was nothing. The boy was completely confused, not understanding why his strength had increased again, as if he was becoming stronger with each passing moment. His combat power was now 440, and he couldn't understand what was happening, why this power continued to grow as if it had no limit. The worm attacked him again, and Lin Hao felt the ground beneath his fingernails shaking from the powerful blows. Lin Hao thought that he would soon be crushed, and that this fight might be his last. But he was not going to give up. The wrath was activated, and Lin Hao felt its power increase with each passing moment, filling him with rage. Lin Hao entered berserker mode, deciding that this was his last chance in this fight, and he was ready to go to the end. He stood right next to his opponent, gritting his teeth, ready for the decisive attack. Lin Hao entered berserker mode again, his rage flaring up, and now he knew no bounds to his strength. He immediately began to attack him with even greater fury, not giving his opponent the slightest chance of victory. Lin Hao shouted that it was time to finish this worm off, so that he would finally give in and stop resisting. After this, a powerful explosion occurred, and the ground underfoot cracked from the force of the impact. As it turned out, the main character managed to win, and he was able to put down this worm, delivering a fatal blow. Lin Hao stood right in front of his body, realizing that this was a victory, but a victory with a heavy price. After that, Lin Hao began to beat him, continuing his harsh and merciless blows without showing any mercy. The worm, of course, felt unbearable pain from each blow, and its resistance weakened with each passing moment. The guy asked if he was just a punching bag for him, since every blow he struck was a real disaster for his opponent. Lin Hao continued to kill him very cruelly and bloodily, not giving him a single chance to escape. After a while, Lin Hao let out a sigh of relief, realizing that he had finally finished this fight. He said that the huge thing was heavier in death than it appeared, and its weight was literally pressing down on his hands. The system laughed, claiming that it constantly had to correct the consequences of his aggressive actions, since Lin Hao often acted without much thought. She began to defend him, trying to minimize the consequences of his actions and ease his situation. A mutated dragon with 120,000 evolution points was a creature to be feared, and Lin Hao knew that his strength was insufficient to deal with such a threat. She couldn't understand whether he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth or was a demon, because his powers and abilities were truly stunning. At this moment, the two captains found their way along the shore, and their steps were getting closer and closer to the place of battle. The girl reported that Et had cut off all their communications, and now they were cut off from other units, unable to get help. The creature laughed, declaring that it had already awakened, and now it would not leave any chance for survival, which was absolutely obvious to everyone. At that moment, the girl stopped. The captain asked what happened, and sensed alarm in her reaction. He began to realize that they had been trapped for a long time, and that the time to escape had been lost. The man told the girl that the situation needed to be dealt with immediately, and suggested that she act decisively. She agreed with him, realizing that there was no other choice. They started fighting this creature at that very second, without wasting a second of time. At that moment his weapon broke, and he realized that his position had become even more dangerous than before. Of course, the captain did not expect his weapon to break so easily, and this was a complete surprise to him. The man clenched his fist tightly, but it did not help him, and the creature simply pushed him back, causing him to lose his balance. The girl ran to him to help, quickly getting her bearings in the situation and analyzing all possible options. She said that his strength was running low and suggested that they try to contact headquarters while she dealt with him. She also noted that he had more advanced armor and warned him to be careful, as his sword was also his weak point. He said that they had to hold out at all costs until reinforcements arrived, because that was their only hope. The girl began to approach him, trying not to move away until the situation stabilized, but she felt how time was running out. Xiao fought him with all her strength, hoping that she could break through his defense. Just then the creature came up behind her, intending to deliver the fatal blow. She was very surprised, and before she could understand what was happening, she suddenly felt a mortal threat. But she still managed to dodge his attack, doing a backflip and saving her life. She noticed that she could barely keep up with his attacks, because the enemy did not get tired, despite his incredible power. His blows were so powerful that it seemed he did not feel tired at all and could continue to attack endlessly. With every movement it made, it became clearer that the creature possessed a power that could not be ignored. He began to attack her again with fury, without regard for the consequences of his actions, and then he decided to approach the captain. as if he felt that his next target was him. The creature began calling them bugs, mocking them and suggesting that they die already, as its patience was running out. Just at that moment, a bright fire could be seen on the battlefield, as if a harbinger of something grand. The man couldn't understand what it was, and his eyes had difficulty taking in what was happening. At that moment, he saw a silhouette that very much resembled the main character, as if it were a sign of fate. The man did not understand where it was, and asking who it was, the girl replied that it was an old friend. The man asked if this was the mutant that was so dangerous that it could destroy them all. Why didn't he just attack them right away instead of waiting? The girl replied that this mutant, despite his abilities, would not harm them, and she would be grateful if he just waited with the report. He agreed, but he knew that it would not be possible to keep it a secret for long, since the truth would be revealed sooner or later. Lin Hao prepared to exist with himself, deciding that if he remained alive, his strength would only grow. He then threw it with force into the stone, as if searching for his inner peace in this brutal act. Et asked if he had awakened when he saw that he was in danger and decided that he must help. Lin Hao said that he was an idiot for giving in to these circumstances instead of acting rationally. Lin Hao asked if the creature was waiting for this dead man who was completely useless. Let them get acquainted, he's in his stomach, Lin Hao said jokingly, not hiding his irony. Then Lin Hao simply sat and watched the dawn, feeling everything around him calm down. He said that it was as if the tires were eating something, which was strange and unclear what he meant. But the girl immediately asked if he had said something similar before. They would raise the level tomorrow because everyone would have to walk to Longjin if they didn't make it in time. He received a notification about a difficult mission, to pet a warrior of the green beast of the first level. The reward, a significant improvement in the cardiopulmonary function. The mission was completed, a difficult mission. To pet a warrior of the green beast of the second level, the reward, improved vision. These tasks were also behind him, and this made him happy. The reward began to gradually apply to the main character, filling him with new strength. He began to say that his eyes felt so good, as if drops had been dripped, and it was a strange, but incredibly pleasant sensation. Then Lin Hao suddenly opened his eyes, feeling how the world around him became brighter and everything became amazingly clear. He had a very great clarity, as if he was looking through a telescope, and every object was sharper and clearer. Even the people at the foot of the Dragon Mountain could be seen with great precision, and he felt that his vision had improved by an order of magnitude. He felt much better than before, and the girl said that the improvements would be felt later, but the special effects would appear very soon. Initially, the city had enough strength to fight all threats, but due to the unexpected appearance of several ships, resources began to run out. The system asked her what she was going to do in this situation. Lin Hao said that he had previously underestimated the dragon's lazy people, and now he realized that he should reconsider his attitude towards them, because they were not that weak. Well, he would help him clear the field, because plans had changed and the hunt was starting right now. At this time, in the cave, everyone was examining the frozen T-Rex, which was encased in ice, as if a symbol of the inevitable awakening. The man said that the cracks were getting bigger and bigger, and that he would soon wake up. But the girl said that this was not yet certain. The guy asked what he meant by not exactly, and he couldn't understand why he wasn't completely sure. The girl said that there were no life signals, and the destruction of the ice could mean awakening, should the rest of the squads be called here for additional support. The girl said that they were still waiting for the delivery, but the guys from headquarters should be back soon, so for now they could hold the defense. They started shouting at her that it was urgent, and the situation became increasingly tense. She was informed that the L organization had leaked the news, and now it was impossible to avoid the hype. She called them bloody maniacs, not hiding her irritation. The captain said that if they couldn't suppress this threat, they needed to deal with the situation quickly before it was too late. The girl couldn't understand where he got suit number 2 from, and it was a complete surprise for her. He said the suit was found in the mountains, and it was extremely unexpected. The girl couldn't understand whether this suit was left after Et finished off Lin Hao, because her thoughts were contradictory. The girl began to open the box, not understanding what was hidden in it. The armor set can only be found in ruins, with set number 3 being easiest to obtain at low levels. Legend has it that there are special suits in the ruins of a highly developed civilization, but so far they don't even have a first-level suit. In the solution storage, you can only choose Tier 3 suits, and combat armor above Tier 2 can only be obtained by passing special tests in the ruins. This does not limit the number of people who can enter the ruins, and while many are able to obtain a second suit, the risk in these places is enormous, and many have died. The girl asked how many of these suits he had found, and her eyes lit up with interest. The captain replied that there were at least 5 sets, which meant that he was prepared for any difficulties. The girl said that this is what she was saying. Yes, it is a special case. But it does not at all give the right to refuse regulation, because every decision is important. She knew the situation was difficult. But she still asked him to trust her, despite the possible consequences. At the moment the earthquake started, there was alarming news that Et was nearby, and they used low-frequency ultrasound to wake them up, which added to the danger. Lin Hao couldn't understand why he felt a strange feeling, as if someone invisible was calling him, disturbing the peace in this chaos. He became curious about who this unknown source was that was causing him such a feeling of anxiety and uncertainty. Could it really be connected to that strange ball he noticed? And was it somehow the key to what was happening? When the situation reached a critical point, Lin Hao tried to grab it, but at that moment, the ball disappeared, as if it had dissolved into thin air. The system asked him if the ball was still there or if it had disappeared, which left the protagonist even more confused. This surprised Lin Hao greatly, as he could not understand what was happening and why all these events were developing so unexpectedly. The guy said he felt like he was resonating with someone but couldn't quite figure out who it was, adding that she was probably too tired to figure it out on her own. Lin Hao realized that the organization behind all this was L, which was clearly pursuing its own goals related to the awakening of something powerful and dangerous. He realized that they had deliberately placed the orb near the ruins to facilitate the awakening of the monsters, and now he would have to face the consequences of their actions. The girl said with a slight smile that if he asked nicely, adding a few warm words, then she might agree to go around this place with him. However, at that moment it was already too late. Lin Hao seemed to dissolve into thin air, and his silhouette disappeared from sight, leaving her slightly confused. The system immediately began to persistently ask where he had suddenly galloped off to, ordering him to stop immediately and wait for her. Lin Hao, without wasting a second, activated camouflage right at that moment, hiding his presence from everyone. He had not yet sensed the Tyrannosaurus's aura, which indicated that the monster had not yet awakened and was still sleeping in its ruins. The girl frowned and asked if there was a traitor in their organization, if one of their own was helping Et awaken the Tyrannosaurus, and that this metal sphere was the key to everything that was happening. It was at this moment that Lin Hao noticed a strange soldier whose behavior immediately seemed suspicious to him. The soldier was behaving somehow too strangely. His movements were unnaturally abrupt, and his gaze was cold and empty. Lin Hao asked the girl if she thought there was something wrong with this guy, as if he was not a soldier at all, but an undercover agent on a secret mission. At that moment, the soldier suddenly began to do something suspicious, nervously looking around and taking a strange metal object from his belt. Lin Hao, using all his stealth skills, quickly made his way deeper into the dark cave, trying not to make a single sound. Of course, Lin Hao had no intention of losing sight of him and immediately began to carefully observe his every move, trying to understand his purpose. The man suddenly laughed quietly and smugly said that he would now awaken another monster, after which his mission would finally be completed. Hearing these words, Lin Hao knew that there was no more time to hesitate, and it was time to act decisively, not allowing the enemy to complete his plan. With a lightning-fast movement, Lin Hao knocked the strange ball out of his hand, and the man, stunned by the surprise, immediately began to ask who was hiding there. At that very moment, Lin Hao appeared right in front of him, like a shadow emerging from thin air, with a cold look in his eyes. The man suddenly became nervous, took out his weapon and without thinking, began shooting at him, firing burst after burst. Lin Hao calmly said that compared to him, the real monster was the one who helped Et awaken those monsters. He added that, in essence, this soldier is not a monster at all, but just a pawn in someone else's bloody game. The man grimaced, and admitted that he too had been awakened by this low-frequency ultrasound, turning him into an obedient executor of other people's orders. He tightly clutched the grenade in his hand and, smiling, said to Lin Hao to be ready, because at this moment, everything was just beginning. The man added with an evil grin that Lin Hao should prepare to face the evolution that had long since broken free. Immediately after his words, there was a powerful, deafening explosion that tore through the air and illuminated the cave with a flash of flame, raising clouds of thick smoke. Lin Hao, clinging to the rock, asked him if he really wanted to drag both of them to the grave with this crazy act. At that moment, his gaze caught some strange movement to the side. Something flashed in the smoke, attracting his attention. The soldiers, attracted by the roar of the explosion, immediately ran to the scene and began to open heavy fire on the dark shadow without hesitation. They even brought a heavy tank with them, which immediately fired, sending a shell towards the enemy, just to be sure. Of course, after the shell hit, another powerful explosion thundered, shaking the earth and making the air tremble. The captain, realizing that it was time to stop firing, raised his hand, giving a stern order to stop the fire. So far, nothing could be seen because of the thick curtain of smoke that was slowly creeping along the ground, hiding everything around. Xiao was anxiously unable to tell whether Lin Hao was alive or already dead. Her heart was beating madly in her chest. It was at this moment that a Tyrannosaurus appeared from behind a curtain of smoke, glaring menacingly at the soldiers with its bright, ominous eyes. The girl shouted that he was still alive and that they had to open fire immediately while there was still some chance. Naturally, the creature roared with rage and rushed at them with such force that the ground shook. The captain quickly reminded him that regular bullets would not be able to penetrate his armor-thick skin, so he would have to act differently. At that moment, one of the shooters took aim and fired straight into the monster's eye, hoping to at least wound it. However, the arrow bounced off his eyeball with ease, leaving only a barely noticeable scratch. The captain was stunned, because even his cornea was strengthened. But the girl confidently replied that everything was not so hopeless. Because they still damaged the eye, they just needed a few more shots. She immediately gave the order to all fighters to concentrate fire on the monster's eyes, because this was its only vulnerable spot. Naturally, everyone immediately started shooting at his eyes, trying to blind the monster. The girl encouraged the fighters, ordering them to continue in the same spirit and not retreat. The dinosaur, enraged by this, went into a rage, roaring so loudly that the earth shook. With one powerful swing, he scattered everyone who stood in his way. No one could stop this furious creature. All attempts were in vain. The girl explained that bullets wouldn't penetrate it, but a blade made of extraterrestrial metal might be worth a try when it got closer. The captain, having assessed the situation, shouted to everyone to immediately retreat back. She gave orders to Cappy Lee to don suit number 2, lead the retreat, and, if necessary, launch the final plan. The girl realized that almost all the soldiers were seriously wounded or incapacitated. Just at that moment, Lin Hao appeared, covered in dust and bruises. He rushed into battle, protecting people from the monster. Lin Hao grabbed the monster right by the neck, trying to hold it back. However, the dinosaur easily threw him aside with one movement. Lin Hao said that thanks to this, he hardly felt the effect of berserk. But time was short. It was at this moment that the girl crept up on the dinosaur from behind. She struck with her weapon, trying to wound. She realized that the blade was indeed leaving marks on his skin. She shouted at Lin Hao to aim for the eyes. This was their chance. Lin Hao grabbed the blade with clenched teeth. After that, he jumped into the air and rushed towards the dinosaur. But, as it turned out, the dinosaur easily bit the blade in half. Lin Hao landed on the ground, disappointed. Then he decided to use his flame, his last hope. If this green monster is a kwai, it can react to fire like a lizard. At that moment, a lot of notifications started coming to his panel. Lin Hao couldn't understand what was happening and what these signals were. The system screen lit up with a message that his own allies were trying to kill him. Of course, soon a new powerful explosion thundered. Lin Hao continued to fight, now in human form without superpowers. He tried with all his might to break through the monster's thick skin. However, at that moment the dinosaur threw him away with its tail. In human form, Lin Hao felt this pain even more intensely. He couldn't believe that his life was on the line again. He didn't even try to get up or defend himself at that moment. The missiles were already flying towards him, getting closer and closer. He didn't understand if this was really his end. The system asked him anxiously if he had gone mad. Lin Hao smiled faintly, happy that he was here again. After the berserker's effect ended, he was teleported before the explosion. He asked if the mutant exploded. The girl replied that it was unlikely, because his skin was stronger than tungsten, and if that didn't finish him off, she'd have to put a cannonball in his mouth. Lin Hao asked how long he had been unconscious. She replied that it had been a day. The guy decided that he should go back and check everything himself. He activated the teleporter and was transported back to Dragon Mountain. A few minutes later, he was already standing at the top, looking around the area. He was asked why he was so worried, afraid that the squad would not cope. He answered that he was afraid of being left without a goal. Even if the enemy's skin was not pierced by the shelling, the bombardment could have seriously wounded him. Perhaps he was somewhere near the river. Lin Hao realized that he had almost found his trail. At that moment, he saw many dead deer scattered across the clearing. And indeed, there sat a dragon, greedily devouring them. Lin Hao activated camouflage to sneak up unnoticed. He then decided to use the fire scales to strengthen his defense and scare his enemies. At that moment, one of the dinosaurs turned a keen gaze on him. The main character immediately rushed towards him like a shot arrow. The protagonist sank his teeth right into his leg, intending to leave a deep wound. He felt a piercing pain at that very moment, barely able to stay on his paws. Feeling the bite, he grabbed the main character with his clawed paws at that moment. The main character defiantly said that the dinosaur was caught like stupid prey. After that, he activated the iron scale armor, enhancing his defensive properties. The main character realized that he needed to deal with this as quickly as possible. Everything here was too saturated with stench. He released a scarlet flame, allowing the tongues of fire to touch the one-eyed lizard from the outside so that she could feel the heat from the inside as well. After some time, the flames began to gradually die out, leaving behind only acrid smoke. Then the creature began to sink helplessly to the ground. Soon it collapsed completely, showing no more signs of life. The main character could not understand what he was eating and why it gave off a disgusting stench. The system suddenly admitted that she had never thought to say such a thing, but she felt truly disgusted by his actions. Full of contempt, she didn't even notice the size of the advisor's pile, asking him to finally stop and have something decent to eat. The main character continued to swallow the lizard without much thought, as if not noticing the disgusting smell. At the same time, there was movement going on inside the building. 2 captains were connected to the headquarters intercom. They both received a strange notification that required an urgent response. They simultaneously grabbed their phones and began to persistently ask what was going on. One of the girls said that she finally understood what was going on. She explained that she had been asked to clarify the situation with another mutated creature that had appeared during the battle, and that she would finally have to tell the whole truth. The girl was just about to tell the captains everything at that moment. Suddenly, the 3rd captain ran up to them and started talking about the dragon. He excitedly reported that a real dragon had appeared in Hualong. The girl asked in surprise if there really were dragons in the city. She seriously wondered if this could be the one they were all talking about. The internet was already buzzing with something out of the ordinary. Someone took a photo of a dragon in Hualong Pond. Dragon Mountain exploded, and in a certain area they noticed a hall, a dinosaur rex, and a pterosaur. And someone even uploaded a photo from a drone that depicted a mythological dragon. The girl stared at the photo, trying to comprehend what was happening. The headquarters also carefully studied this photograph, assessing the scale of the threat. Someone asked her what she thought about it. She replied that it might be a mutant or a snake-like reptile, although she would not rule out the possibility of a real dragon, believing that it was one of the most ancient species of fallen creatures. She could hardly believe that all this was happening again in Hualong. One of the men said that the most important thing now is to calm the citizens and not allow public opinion to worsen the situation. Otherwise, L will immediately take advantage of it. In essence, it's simple. They'll claim that the explosion on the mountain was the result of military exercises, and they'll forget about the film with the holograms altogether. The girl ordered that all data be immediately deleted from the internet, assuring that over time, everyone would forget about it and find a new reason for information. At the same time, something else was happening in the pond. The main character said that there shouldn't be anyone here now, but the system insisted that he get out already. He was already level 40. Combat power reached 499, divine power. Lucky talisman level 10 passive. Who would have thought that that tyrant would reward him with 110,000 evolution points, thanks to which he ascended. If he only knew, he would have eaten him before he woke up in those ruins, even though the consequences could have been severe. It was amazing when he turned from a salamander into a water dragon. Now all that was left was to wait for the moment to one day evolve into a real one, because the main specimens need a dragon gate to ascend, and he only needs teeth and work. He might not need the dragon gate, but it's worth a visit to Dragon Mountain. The system has already started to joke that he's rising right above it. When they arrived, they immediately noticed that the entrance to the cave was blocked. The main character began to clear the rubble, throwing stones to the sides. He said that since these were the remains of the ancient A civilization, it would not be difficult to blow them up. But first we had to get inside. Fortunately, he could take human form and go there, saving his strength. And the girl asked him if he was tired of carrying these stones. The main character could not understand what kind of mouse appeared among the ruins. Then he noticed some strange movement in the corner. Hundreds of mice suddenly began to rush out of the cave, like the eruption of a living stream. The main character did not understand whether they were all from the ruins. The system said that most likely, the partially visible ones had achieved their goal, awakened the mutants, which was quite strange and unusual. The main character turned into a human and began to crawl inside, trying to be as careful as possible. He thought it was not harmful. Who would have thought that there would be so much here that he could not even imagine? Okay, 2 more T-Rexes at the entrance. But there are so many creatures here that were thought to be extinct, and it was really unexpected. Given their size, they must all be mutated. Unless something incredible happens, unless there are powerful emissions, then entering the other ruins will be just as dangerous. At this point, The boy heard Captain Lowe being told that there was a passage here, which gave him hope for further progress. The main character immediately used camouflage to avoid being noticed and remain unnoticed in this situation. He said that it was part of a river, so what was happening outside did not affect them. Despite the fact that in the military everything seemed much more organized, scientists of the world have tried for many years to study these creatures, but still do not understand why they exist at all. This civilization was more advanced than they expected, and this could mean that they were not alone in their struggle. Just at that moment, the man came up almost right up to the main character, surprising him with his persistence. He asked if these were remnants left by aliens, and if there was any trace of their presence here. The captain replied that most likely not, and that they could not simply be aliens. They suggest that before humans appeared, there may have been a more powerful and advanced civilization that came to Earth, leaving behind these mysterious religions and other traces. That is, Et did not attack the city, they just wanted to awaken the text of creation. But weren't they sealed below them? What is their goal, and what do they really want? Let them not get hung up on these questions. The main thing is to find a good goal for their return and get the necessary equipment. The protagonist thought about all this, feeling his anxiety growing. The girl was confident, and said in her mind that she would protect Lin Hao no matter what it cost her, and would not hand him over to the enemy. The main character said that he petted a mutated Tyrannosaurus, and received 110,000 evolution points. There were so many of these mutants that his eyes did not have time to perceive everything that was happening. The guy realized that there was a lot of evolution here, and it was so obvious that he couldn't help but be amazed. The system told him not to get too excited, as recognition could play a role, and it was better to be careful about sticking to them for a while. The skills showed him a 0 in front of them, which meant that he was not ready for such a test. The main character could not understand. All these mutants were dead. He did not know how this was possible, and what happened to them. It turns out that unawakened beings do not have evolution points, and this was a completely new discovery for him. It's a pity, of course, that they couldn't evolve, but we'll have to come to terms with the missed opportunity. He received a special reward, absorbing a mutated Tyrannosaurus Rex, which gave him even more strength and confidence. Previously, acquiring skills was completely random, but now there is even a progress bar. Is this really all a reward for absorbing a mutated Tyrannosaurus? The protagonist touched the keratinized claws, feeling their hardness and sharpness. Of course, his paw immediately began to change, and this gave him the ability to act much faster and more powerfully. Lin Hao realized that they now seemed much sharper than they had been before, and this would give him an additional advantage in battle. He realized that he needed to test them in action, and he did not delay in making this decision. Lin Hao immediately decided to test them on rocks to check their sharpness and strength. Dear ones. These also do not leave scratches on the ruins, but these claws are incredibly sharp, and also have a corrosion effect, which makes them even more dangerous. If he fought Tis again, he wouldn't even have to bite him. He would just tear him to pieces, leaving him no chance. The main character could not understand what kind of riddle this was. The protagonist touched this mark, feeling a strange excitement. It then showed this mark on the map, which made his further progress much easier. After that, he began to teleport, quickly moving to the desired location. A very bright announcement occurred, which made him wary. Lin Hao returned to Hualong Pond, and he didn't understand how he ended up here. The girl said that he didn't even look at her and she had nothing to do with it, which only added to his confusion. If he gets the mythical iron scale, he can only go to Hualong, then there is only one place left, and he needs to move there immediately. The main character began to swim into the depths, feeling how everything around him was becoming increasingly gloomy and ominous. He didn't understand when it became so quiet here. Something was wrong, and he should be much more careful. The protagonist focused his attention inward, trying to find out what was going on. He couldn't understand whether it had really dealt with all the others so quickly and silently. The guy didn't understand whether they were lying down or whether this strange creature was advancing. Something started to move quickly towards him, and it made him feel real fear. The protagonist closed his eyes, but continued to look, trying not to miss an important detail. Hydrogen appeared right in front of him. He asked if there was something opening below, and it was strange. The guy realized that things were bad and the situation could get worse at any moment. At that moment, something was looking right at him, and it made his heart beat faster. A mutated creature appeared right in front of him. A Ranka, a mutated axolotl with a total combat power of 778. This greatly surprised the main character, because he did not expect to encounter such a powerful creature that could frighten him. The guy realized that he couldn't see anything, his vision was blurred, and he couldn't get his bearings in this situation. The axolotl began to attack him with unimaginable fury, and the protagonist felt his strength fading. The main character managed to scream, trying to warn himself, but the monstrous threat was already too close. Then there was a powerful explosion that shook everything around, and the earth literally shook from the force of this blow. Unfortunately, the axolotl threw the protagonist back, and he ended up on the ground, unable to immediately get up and continue the fight. He couldn't understand why he didn't care about the fire. It was tempting, and he decided to test how strong he was. The protagonist said that they would see who would have the last laugh, and with renewed determination he continued to fight. The axolotl did not stop attacking him. Every movement was swift and dangerous. The protagonist saw for the first time a mutant capable of exhaling ice from his mouth, and it amazed him with its power and terrifying nature. The protagonist told him to go to the creator, hoping that these words would somehow influence his opponent. Then another powerful explosion occurred, and the earth shook from a new wave of destruction. The guy expected it to be so cold that probably all the other creatures would just run away, escaping from this force. The protagonist's hand literally froze at that moment, and he felt the icy energy penetrate his body. He couldn't understand what was happening, but he thought that perhaps he too had acquired sharp claws like this mutant. The axolotl continued to look at him, assessing whether he was ready to fight to the end or not. The protagonist wanted to use his tail as a weapon, hoping that it would help him win this brutal battle. But at that moment, the enemy attacked first, and his blow was so strong that the main character had to immediately defend himself. Linhao said that it was painful, which was surprising since his body was already used to pain. But this attack was different. The protagonist still continued to fight him, despite the pain and fatigue, not wanting to give in to this brutal battle. He hoped that the scales of mythical iron were worth risking his life for such a powerful weapon. Previously, he was worried about the side effects of Berserker and the other mutants in the pond, not knowing that he would have to face such dangers. But now at this moment, he realized that perhaps he could just die, and this thought did not leave him. The protagonist began to use his skill, feeling his strength increase and hoping that it would bring him victory. The protagonist set fire to the enemy's limbs, hoping that the fire would weaken him so that he could deliver the decisive blow. After this, they fought again, and each of them used their strength to gain the upper hand. Linhao said that fire and ice, they will now find out who is stronger and who will remain standing in the end. They began to fight with their opposing powers, fire and ice clashing in the air, creating a spectacle of unimaginable power. Linhao asked how he would treat his wounds now, because without the regeneration of the ice ability, and without Berserk, he would have died. Regenerating his ice ability without Berserk would mean his inevitable death, and he was well aware of that. The axolotl simply began to run away, seeing that it could not win, and realizing that it needed to find another way to defeat the enemy. The protagonist, of course, went after him, not intending to give his enemy a single chance to escape. The protagonist asked if he was trying to escape from him, and at that moment he attacked, confident that this was the only way he could end this fight. The axolotl was furious, his eyes blazed with malice, and he was ready to fight to the last, without thinking about the consequences. Linhao grabbed him directly from behind, not giving him the opportunity to break free and loosen his grip. After that, Linhao suddenly pressed him to the ground, leaving him no chance to escape. However, the axolotl began to attack, not giving up and continuing to fight until the end. Now Linhao stubbornly grabbed his head, preparing for the final decision in this bloody fight. Linhao simply tore him apart without any mercy or fear, ending the fight with fierce determination. After that, Linhao simply watched him with a cold gaze, assessing the consequences of his victory. The guy said that he finally died. It seems he overexerted himself a little and needs to rest, because this fight took a lot of his strength. Then the main character's eyes began to close. He felt the weight of his body lowering him into unconsciousness. Then he began to lose consciousness completely, his thoughts becoming more and more scattered and vague. The system didn't understand why it had to constantly clean up after him, but it continued to do its job despite all the difficulties. At that moment, everyone at headquarters was extremely interested in this mutant, because his actions were becoming more and more unusual and dangerous. After careful consideration, the headquarters decided to track him down and capture him in order to understand how to use his unique abilities. The captain asked if she had decided what she would say, since the situation required immediate decisions and a clear response. The girl said that she decided to tell the truth, since it would be pointless to hide anything in this situation. She knew that this mutated creature had saved their lives several times already, and it showed no hostility. He was not evil, but rather an amazing being who had his own goals and his own mission, even if they could not understand them. The captain simply listened to her, taking in every word and assessing the situation. He agreed with her and said that during the operation in the Dragon Mountain, this mutant appeared just in time and helped a lot, saving many. With the traffic jams on their side, the news was great. But they knew there were bigger challenges ahead. However, the commanders considered such creatures too unreliable and could not guarantee that he would never change his intentions. The girl asked what if they just tracked him without catching him, as that might be a safer option. The man asked what the point was then, since if they didn't catch him, they couldn't be sure of his loyalty. Thanks to this mutant, many number 2 suits were not found during that operation, and he knows that they need them, so he will probably lead to others if he allows it. This makes sense, but you still need to report to your superiors and wait for instructions. By the way, the actions have started to go beyond the city, so let them be prepared for unexpected turns. The girl said okay, she'll go check Captain Xiao, and if possible decide what to do next. After that, she breathed a sigh of relief. Even though it was a difficult decision, she felt that she had done the right thing. She thanked Lin Hao in her mind. But for now, that was all she could do for him, leaving his fate to the discretion of the command. Lin Hao said that when he woke up, after the berserkers, he always slept so deeply that it seemed like his body couldn't rest properly. At that moment the girl appeared in front of him and asked if he had slept well, and also inquired if he had forgotten about her. Lin Hao told her to keep quiet for a bit. He was trying to find logic in her words, but so far it was not working. She didn't care. Let him eat it already. He smelled terrible, but she wasn't ready to tolerate his whining. The acquired skill of mythical iron scales turned out to be incomparably stronger than ordinary scales, with extremely high defensive capabilities. Lin Hao began to acquire the new skill, feeling his body change and adapt to the new powers. His body changed dramatically and he felt his physical abilities greatly enhanced. She would have better protection, even though he had to give up armor. The scale keys made the deal profitable for him, and they congratulate him on the fact that he received a hidden reward and can now perform a merger with a prickly scale. And he, of course, would agree. The fusion began, and Lin Hao asked if it would be a combination of the 2 types of scales, to which he was told that it would be. The fusion was successful, and Lin Hao congratulated himself on acquiring the mythical scale key, which had unparalleled defensive capabilities. Although this special effect only returned 1% of the damage, it was still useful and brought some benefit in combat. But in any case, it was better than nothing, and Lin Hao understood that even such small bonuses could make a difference. Lin Hao walked forward, determined to find out what was hidden further on. Was he crazy, or was the water level in the pond rising? A question arose in his mind, and he decided to check. It seemed like the water was coming from that crevice left by the axolotl, and Lin Hao felt that it was no coincidence. He was sure that there would be even more strange creatures there. And this place hides many secrets. When it's eerie and you can't see anything at all, if you look into the abyss will definitely look back at you. And he felt it intuitively. So, instead of playing a staring contest, it's better to go and say hello to what's lurking in the dark. Such a deep analysis does not at all look like it was dug by that axolotl. Most likely it was people who left such traces. Lin Hao decided to examine the wall, thinking that there might be something important there. He realized that the wall was metal, and this surprised him very much, since he did not expect this in this place. Lin Hao didn't know if there were more axolotls around or if this was the work of other creatures. One didn't work out, and they decided to team up, or something else happened. He wasn't sure. Lin Hao realized that it was time to test his new skin, as it could give him certain advantages in battle. Lin Hao began to fight them using his new strength and skills. He fought them with ease, confident in his abilities, and ready to win. The axolotl decided to use ice to try and stop him, but Lin Hao was ready for it. Lin Hao laughed, immediately noticing his opponent's attempt, and used flames to burn away his ice barriers. He was indeed weaker now, and Lin Hao realized it. Lin Hao destroyed the 2, leaving them no chance of victory. After that, he simultaneously bit off their heads to finally get rid of the threat. Absorbed by a 3rd-rank mutant axolotl, gained 80 evolution points. Let them attack him. This small snack is no match for what he has already encountered. Lin Hao approached closer and closer, confident in his superiority. The guy didn't understand what that bright light was in front of him, and he felt like something unusual was happening. Lin Hao stopped abruptly, sensing that there was something significant in front of him. Then something started to happen, and the atmosphere around them became even more tense. The guy admitted that he felt uneasy, and that he felt his heart start beating faster. The girl asked him if it felt like he was in a cage, and he replied that that was exactly how he felt at that moment. Lin Hao said that it seemed like he had been caught and now the bailiffs were monitoring him. He didn't expect that there would be something so large under Hualong. What if these are the ruins of an ancient civilization? At that moment, some skeleton appeared. Lin Hao noticed that the bones were very thick. The creatures were gigantic. He didn't understand what was happening. The guy noticed something. The protagonist read that it was incredible. The ruins were even larger than those in Corrego. This explains the appearance of Et in Huolong Pond. He wondered why they didn't ask El to awaken these ruins. Et doesn't fully trust El. Lin Hao began to make his way inside. He couldn't understand if that axolotl had escaped from here. Lin Hao stopped abruptly. He was curious about what this ancient place was. It was a giant fire crocodile, and its combat power was 0. The guy said that thank God he wasn't awakened. It seems they woke up yours, and he met only one. Where is the second one? He remembered that there was an axolotl carcass in the tunnel, so he killed it. Now it's clear why the Et don't try to awaken everyone at the same time. Otherwise they'll just kill each other. Lin Hao knew that it was the first level or something else. Lin Hao approached the gate. He noticed that there were no such creatures in the ruins of the Dragon Mountain. Were these creatures really more dangerous? The ruins of another civilization existed before the appearance of people. The creatures who created them were green warriors. It cannot be that they are smarter. He realized that they were just mercenaries. The girl asked why he was so offended. He replied that it was not a grudge, but simply energy accumulated over a lifetime of working from 9 to 5, and even after death it runs out. At that moment the container cracked. Lin Hao asked whose container was cracked. He saw a mutated third-rank piranha. Its combat power was unknown. The main character immediately began to approach. He tried to break the container, but unfortunately he didn't succeed. Lin Hao realized that even his claws couldn't penetrate this container. The creature looked at him. He realized that this container could only be broken from the inside. What kind of creature is this? He decided to join the fight. Lin Hao asked if he was sure he should attack. When he bit him, Lin Hao asked if that was all. After that, he simply threw him off his tail and told him to stay out of the way. The feather ricocheted into other containers. Lin Hao said that youth is priceless. It melts in the mouth. After that, he ate the piranha. System notification. Level 3 piranha absorbed. 70,000 evolution points gained. He said it was pretty good. When Lin Hao heard a sound, he asked what it was. He asked if the cracks could have come from the outside. It might be from Shabong's back, but its durability isn't enough to compare to Lin Hao's claws. Maybe it's because of the metal ball, although no, it's from the dragon. The girl said that maybe it was because of him. Lin Hao asked if they had awakened after sensing the presence of their kinsman. Or is it because of his strength? First of all, you need to select the process from here. The movement begins. Hualun Pond. The location of the relic turned out to be extremely unusual, because it was located not only underwater, but also in the very center of the city, which will make its search even more difficult and time-consuming. The level of the photo turned out to be much higher, and he should pay attention to how well she tired to grow. Wow. What a huge and impressive koi carp. There is definitely some spiritual energy involved here, because every time he worships the dragon ship, he gets incredibly lucky. Maybe it has something to do with the manifestation of the Dragon King. The blessing aura acts passively, increasing the luck of nearby objects over a large area, and also significantly speeds up the evolution of plants and animals. The Dragon King is, in fact, the main character of this whole story. The system reported that the Dragon King was so benevolent that his influence could be felt even at this level. Lin Hao realized that this was the skill he had been looking for so long. However, he wasn't sure if he should be happy. If it was the aura that awakened them, maybe he should just leave the pond alone. There was no evidence of its influence on the ruins yet, so it was hard to judge. He didn't want Huolong to become a ruined and dangerous area like Dragon Mountain. System notification, quest update, super hard quest. Absorb a level 5 sea loach mutant, reward. A box with valuable items. At this time on the open sea, the man said that this fish would bring them a lot of money. It was simply incredibly valuable. The girl replied with a smile that that was great. Then she would go and choose a bigger one so that her mother could put it out. But the girl was clearly scared, and asked her dad what these strange events were all about. The man turned around and saw behind him a huge creature, an octopus, which was approaching at an alarming speed. He immediately grabbed the ship, trying to hold on until the octopus started grabbing them. The girl was terrified. The man grabbed her and tried to calm her down, but she still began to panic, asking what was going on. The man grabbed the nearest stick, trying to prepare for a fight. He asked the girl to start the boat immediately, hoping that they would be able to escape. But the octopus grabbed the boat, and the girl did not have time to run inside, remaining in danger. She began to beg at night for her father to save her from this terrible creature. But alas, at that moment the octopus had already grabbed the man, and they found themselves in even greater danger. It was at this moment that Lin Hao appeared, and he immediately realized that he had to act. Lin Hao saved the girl by pulling her out of the octopus's hands. The octopus was naturally in incredible pain, as Lin Hao spared no effort to defeat it. Lin Hao set out to chase after the creature that threatened everything around him. The man and the girl were rescued and could now feel safe. The girl gratefully told her father that the dragon had saved them and that they would never forget his feat. Lin Hao could understand why the octopus's attack felt so familiar. He realized how small the world was and how everything was intertwined in this strange and dangerous place. The girl, noticing him, asked where he was going. Lin Hao replied that he would go and deal with the aftermath of what had happened and try to find out who else might be in danger. At this time on the ship, the father told the girl that everything was fine. Daddy had already called for help, and they would soon be home, safe. However, something began to happen, and the attention of the girl and her father was finally drawn. The girl, confused, asked what exactly was happening. Lin Hao continued to approach them, ready to intervene at any moment. The man reassured the girl, saying that everything would be okay and that he had returned to protect them. After a while, everything calmed down and the situation seemed to stabilize. Lin Hao told the girl to keep everything a secret, and she thanked him, promising that she would never forget his kindness. The system asked him how it felt to be called cute and suggested that he do good deeds every day. The system curiously asked him what he was really feeling, and of course asked him not to say that he was scared. Lin Hao replied that even if his strength was not enough to infect now, in the past, there was nothing to limit him. He could teleport at any time, but now he had already gone beyond the teleportation radius. However, he can always hunt sea loaches if necessary. Just at that moment, the octopus began to approach him again. He grabbed the protagonist, but Lin Hao couldn't understand why he didn't want him to leave. At that moment, a huge crab claw could be seen approaching at incredible speed. Lin Hao used the thorny mythical scales to repel the attack. After some time, he released the main character, giving him a chance to escape. The guy realized that the octopus had insane regeneration, and this made it difficult to fight. Lin Hao said that he would test whether his plan would work by roasting it to destroy the creature completely. It was the guy, that is, who did it decisively and without delay. He said it was completely lacking in flavor and suggested adding a little cumin to give it some spice. Lin Hao continued to watch the octopus closely, recording its every move. Lin Hao approached him and said that his lackey was too pitiful to handle this test. Lin Hao used analysis to understand exactly what he was dealing with. It was a mutated crimson crab, a level 5 creature worth paying attention to. The system reported that it was advancing, but the guy couldn't understand what this strange duet between an octopus and a crab was. It was literally a crab merging with an octopus, which looked extremely unusual. Lin Hao tried to figure out whether it was a crab or an octopus, or something more complex. The girl said that it was his problem, and he had to solve it himself. Lin Hao realized that he needed to resolve this issue urgently, otherwise the consequences could be irreversible. He began to walk straight towards them, ready to act despite the danger. The octopus immediately grabbed him, but Lin Hao easily escaped from its grip, showing his agility and strength. But Lin Hao broke out of his trap with surprising ease, demonstrating his exceptional speed and strength. He said that by using great speed, one can outplay any martial arts, because speed is the key to victory. Suddenly, there was a powerful explosion that shook everything around, causing the air to ring from the force of the impact. Lin Hao immediately realized that this was something much more powerful than he expected, and that the explosion was a harbinger of something more dangerous. He was surprised, not understanding if it was his crimson fire that could be so destructive. The girl calmly said that everything is much more complicated for the octopus than it seems at first glance. This creature has 3 hearts, 9 brains, and 2 sets of memories, making it truly unique. The guy walked past, wondering why he needed so much of this, and what kind of strange animal it was that defied simple understanding. She added that the octopus's mood, by the way, was much better than that of a human, which was also a little surprising. Each of its tentacles has a secondary brain that allows it to detach its arms to distract predators when it encounters danger. The octopus's photoreceptor cells are located on the outermost layer of its skin, which is covered in opsins, allowing it to see in the dark. The guy asked, "So they are invincible. Why haven't they captured the land yet if they are so powerful?" She replied that octopuses are kinetically limited. Their lives are too short and solitary, despite their incredible learning abilities. Their lifestyle makes it impossible to transmit knowledge. They are truly amazing, but at the same time scary. By the way, if you want, we can try fried octopus tentacles today. He didn't have that skill, and little Shui was right. Their learning ability was amazing. Once they showed it, they already knew everything and could easily adapt. This really amazed him, because such ability to learn and adapt could not fail to impress. But still, he couldn't forget that it was this damn crab that attacked him first. Lin Hao activated the analysis to accurately understand what was happening. The boy realized that it was an octopus, and realized that it was the main threat. The mutated octopus turned out to be very dangerous. He posed on the blood and controlled the situation like an experienced strategist. Lin Hao began to approach him, preparing for his next move. Lin Hao at least now understood what he was about to face. He didn't believe that this octopus was capable of learning everything, but he was willing to test it. Lin Hao touched it, feeling its energy being transmitted through contact. He asked whether he had actually learned it that quickly, or whether it had seemed that way to him. He overestimated. It seems the octopus did not learn, but only repeated its usual actions. Lin Hao was wondering what to do next, as time was running out. The regeneration seemed to only work on the octopus, and Lin Hao wondered if he could use it on the crab as well. They actually attacked him, not giving him the slightest chance of salvation. Lin Hao asked, "If he just likes to repeat himself, then let him try to repeat it again." The protagonist touched it, feeling the energy pass through his hand. After that, he grabbed the claw sharply, feeling almost no resistance. The protagonist tore off the tentacles with great force, not giving the octopus time to react. The guy told him to grow another one because he was interested in how quickly they grew back. Apparently, this was the main character's plan, to create a situation where his opponent would not be able to cope with regeneration. The crab then began to attack the guy, radiating rage and despair. As he attacked, Lin Hao asked if he was spitting acid, as it seemed useless. The protagonist then tore off the claw again, not giving the enemy a chance to recover. After this, the guy decided to use flame, hoping that it would help destroy the enemy. The protagonist laughed and asked if he would use his own spells against him. The main character continued to attack the enemy without stopping. A moment later, the main character grabbed the octopus by the tentacles. Soon he had completely separated the octopus from the crab. The protagonist threw the creature far away from himself. If it weren't for the berserker skill that allowed him to fly into it, and the strong resistance to attacks, it would have been extremely difficult to deal with such an opponent. He never thought that one mutant could parasitize another. The protagonist asked if he was now trying to escape. The main character, of course, began to pursue him without delay. After the chase, he chopped the creature into small pieces. The system warned him not to chase after him, since berserker's time is not eternal. They meet for the second time already. He is afraid to imagine how the enemy will change by the third time. First, let him come back and eat what he can while they chase the enemy. The main character was wondering if they would meet again. If the octopus would remain the same, he had to make him die on that damn mountain. He had to complete a super difficult task. Pet a level 5 mutant, a crimson crab. The reward is a random skill. Completed. He dreamed of a machine gun that makes a tridata sound and releases blue fire. The system reported that his request was sent for verification. The protagonist began to press the random skill button impatiently. The heavens blessed him, congratulating him on acquiring the pink muttering skill. Lin Hao couldn't understand what this was all about. The system immediately showed him a new notification, asking him to study it carefully. Mutter is a passive skill. He listens to the target's language, begins to slowly imitate it, and then completely masters speech, applicable to all creatures. Imitation was an octopus skill, and its reward was similar, which means that in the future it will be able to receive the skills of other mutants. The main character realized that now there was an opportunity to learn the Yet language. The system asked where he was going, offering to come up with a way to get into the Dragon Squad's auditorium. The system exclaimed in rage that he himself was putting his head in the noose. Meanwhile, it was deep night in the building. A tall man stood near the window, looking thoughtfully into the distance. He gently asked little Lu if she was still working on the project. The girl, without looking up from her research, replied that she was conducting important experiments on that topic. He asked if she was still trying to find a way to increase the activity of the virus through activation. He said it was impossible. She replied that the activity of the virus was the key to enhancing the ability. Everyone was striving for this, but for now the only way was to inject more of the substance, which led to serious risks. If everything works out, she will be able to save many innocent lives. The girl was absolutely sure that the right way would definitely be found. The man simply agreed and told her not to stay up late and to take care of her health. The main character was extremely surprised and wondered where this brilliant idea was. That's okay, but why the hell are the clothes so small, like they were designed for a pervert? The girl, on the contrary, enjoyed the situation and playfully asked what small clothes meant. The protagonist advised her to go down lower and see what would happen next. The main character carefully began to make his way further down the corridor. He asked the system if it could sense where the Dragon Squad had placed Et, and it replied that the signal was too weak to determine. As always happens at the most important moment of the operation, suddenly someone ordered him to stop, and he realized that he had been discovered. The girl said suspiciously that there was no one so muscular among the cleaners. The system warned that here was his girlfriend. She had already called the police. The guy should not move. She demanded that he raise his hands above his head and turn around slowly. The protagonist quietly called her Little Xiao. The girl finally recognized her boyfriend and immediately let go of the weapon. With tears in her eyes, she began to speak tenderly to Lin Hao. The commanders started asking over the radio if she was okay and where she was, and she replied that the police had already arrived. The girl excitedly told him to follow her immediately. The guy in uniform said it was strange. He definitely heard someone's voices here. Perhaps they were somewhere nearby in the room. That's right. This is where they hid from their pursuers. All three of them quietly hid from them in this cramped room. The system excitedly said that they were approaching. The main character did not understand what she was afraid of. After all, no one would see her. The system pressed him very close to her lush breasts. The protagonist was dangerously close to sneezing loudly. The pursuers had almost reached their hiding place. Unexpectedly, in this tense situation, the girl kissed him passionately. One of the pursuers said that it seemed like there was no one there, and that they needed to look elsewhere. After the danger had passed, they simply looked at each other in silence. An awkward silence fell between them. The girl excitedly began to ask what was happening to him, what he was doing here, whether he had been there too. The protagonist replied that it was a very long story, but he came for Et, whom they had captured. Suddenly, it was as if he had been struck by a powerful electric current. The system urgently informed him that he would only be in human form for 5 minutes, so he should hurry up. He indignantly asked the system if it couldn't have told him about this earlier. The girl cautiously asked who he was talking to. He confidently answered that he was talking to no one. The main thing was for her to remember one thing. Whatever he becomes, whatever he turns into, he will never harm her. Then the main character decisively knocked out the girl with one precise blow. The system asked in surprise why he didn't tell her the truth. Lin Hao explained that if the Dragon Squad found out about his uniqueness, he would be locked away in the lab at that very moment. Zhui wouldn't be able to protect him from them. It is necessary to become stronger so as not to worry about their safety. And then they will be together again without fear. After saying these words, Lin Hao hurriedly began to leave the room. Meanwhile, something unusual and strange began to happen to the girl. After some time, she slowly woke up from oblivion. She was surprised to notice that her body had become much lighter, wondering how this was even possible. She could not understand at all why the activity of the virus in her body had increased so sharply. The thought arose. Could it really be that her passionate kiss with the guy was the reason? The ruins of this ancient civilization contain technology far superior to their own, a priceless source of knowledge, but she is far more important than them, so let her be extremely careful. The captain was serious about the fact that she would have to go through a deadly test to get the second piece of equipment, something that would be completely beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person. And he was worried, but he was sure that she would definitely get it. It is precisely because a new and amazing power has recently awakened within her. If only they could completely subjugate these ruins. But easier said than done. The damn ruins are completely uncontrollable without a special key, and there is absolutely nothing that can be done about it. He sincerely hopes that the girl will be able to profit from something useful inside. The girl resolutely walked inside the ancient ruins. At that very moment, something strange appeared in front of her. She was formally greeted by the local system, offering to choose a suitable weapon, although the pistols look menacing. They are completely useless against mutants. With the giant heavy axe, it will be easy to defend and attack. It is the perfect choice for the challenge. The weapon selection has been successfully completed. Dangerous testing will begin soon. The system formally wished her luck and disappeared. The girl immediately began to fight with all her might against the enemies that appeared. Zhu's attention was drawn to something unusual ahead. She deftly began to pass numerous obstacles and tricky traps. Her incredible agility makes such difficult challenges seem like child's play. The girl landed gracefully on the hard ground after the jump. Then she turned her attention to something again. All of a sudden, she began to fall into a deep trap under her feet. But at the very last critical moment, she managed to grab hold of the ledge firmly, thanks to her reliable axe. She intuitively understood that something was clearly wrong here. Then she clearly felt something behind her. Right in front of her, she saw a huge stegosaurus ready to attack. The head and unprotected belly are its only weak points. The girl began to carefully approach the giant creature. She then quickly jumped high into the air to attack. She realized with surprise that apparently since the last time her body had become much stronger and more durable. This caused him to throw her into the wall, causing her to lose her balance. After this, the girl fell to the ground, her strength almost exhausted. She realized that she needed to learn his new weakness in order to win. She realized that she couldn't just give in and let him beat her. But she didn't have much choice, because the situation was becoming critical. The creature continued to beat her anyway, leaving no chance. Then she grabbed his tail, trying to hold it back. After that, she stripped him naked, pressing herself against his body. She then jumped on his back, continuing to fight. She began to make her way towards his head, preparing for the final blow. After that, she pushed herself up higher. She jumped into the air and wanted to hit him right on the head, hoping for luck. She felt a rush of warmth fill her body, just like that day, preparing for the decisive moment. And then she hit him with all her might, leaving him no chance to defend himself. Of course, he felt pain at that moment, feeling the force of her blow. The system congratulated her on successfully completing the test, encouraging her success. She was provided with new equipment that greatly increased her capabilities. Xiao was glad that she finally received such a useful gift. Lin Hao said that he wanted to learn the Yet language so much. But in the end, he left with nothing. The system asked if he left with nothing. And what about his kiss with Xiao Sui? Lin Hao told her to shut up and they wouldn't talk about it anymore. The system said he was a pervert, but Lin Hao just shrugged. Lin Hao said that he was just a system, and there was no need to be so dramatic. He noticed that she was becoming more and more human-like, and was surprised by her reaction. At that moment, some kind of creature appeared behind him, and he did not understand what kind of giant mutated mollusks they were. It just attacked him at that moment, not giving him time to think. Lin Hao realized that he would have to fight to survive. He used the reinforced fire scales in preparation for defense. At that moment, Lin Hao suddenly stood up on his feet, preparing to attack. He couldn't understand why he was so attracted to the smell he smelled. He began to attract the attention of the mollusk, realizing that this was his chance. Lin Hao suddenly bit him, trying to force him to retreat. He petted the mutated level 2 sea mollusk and gained evolution points, feeling pleasure from the process. Lin Hao noticed that the clam was a second tier one, which confirmed its importance. Then he did something to draw attention to himself. Lin Hao gained 20,000 evolution points, receiving a huge reward for his victory. Lin Hao began to eat it, enjoying every moment. Something appeared behind him again, and he didn't understand what it was. It was a mutated level 5 creature, a fiery red giant crocodile with a combat power of 1,265. Lin Hao was surprised to see that the crocodile had such high combat power. The mollusk grabbed him at that moment, giving him no chance to escape. Then he grabbed the floor of it, trying to restrain its movements. Lin Hao realized that he wanted another piece and couldn't stop. After that, he used the fried squid skill, hoping for success. The guy was surprised that mollusks of such strength withstood his attacks. Lin Hao continued to be trapped in this situation, but his determination did not wane. Lin Hao then used his corrosive claws to break free. This helped him, and he managed to escape from the trap, continuing the fight. The combat power was too high. Even if he activated the Super Berserker mode, it was not easy to deal with him. The guy understood that he could lose, and he needed to act quickly. It's better for him to survive and earn evolution points than to die without them. Lin Hao started to run away, realizing that he needed to find a safe place. The system told him not to worry because he was safe, and if it weren't for it, no one would have noticed him. But taking revenge would not be manly, and he would also gain experience. The system asked if he wanted to go back and find him, but Lin Hao stated that he had a brilliant plan. The underwater tunnel in Hualong Pond, where the strongest 5th-level existences only had 1,000 combat power, became his target. The system said that it was better to start quickly, without wasting time. Lin Hao hit the first container, starting the preparations. With the buff, his combat power can reach 1,150, giving him an advantage. Lin Hao began to break all the containers, becoming stronger each time. The first creature immediately began to attack him. Lin Hao was furious, preparing to strike back. He watched and continued to stand in place, waiting for the moment. But then he attacked him and said that he was finished now. The second creature attacked him, giving him no chance to win. Lin Hao used flame to burn him. The creature died immediately before his eyes, disappearing into the fire. He started receiving notifications that he had petted a level 3 piranha, a level 3 mutated conger eel, and a level 3 mutated blue-ringed octopus. Lin Hao said that he had eaten too much and next time he should find someone stronger. At that moment, something floated behind him, attracting his attention. It was a healthy creature, and Lin Hao looked at it carefully. The boy looked at him silently, not knowing what to expect. It was a mutated level 5 creature, a fiery red giant crocodile with a combat power of 1,265. Lin Hao laughed and said that he was just in time. Lin Hao looked at him carefully, preparing to attack. After that, he decided to attack him with his tail, hoping for success. Lin Hao told the crocodile that he was already dead, but he was not going to give up. Lin Hao then jumped back, not giving the crocodile a chance to attack. After that, Lin Hao attacked him with his tail again, increasing the speed of his attack. It actually worked, and he pushed the crocodile back. Of course, the crocodile was furious and unwilling to give up. As it turned out, the crocodile was trapped in some kind of way, but Lin Hao had no intention of stopping. Lin Hao said that they would see whose flame was stronger. After this, an explosion occurred as both creatures attacked each other. Lin Hao wondered if the crocodile thought it was over, but it continued to resist. The next attack was supposed to be decisive. They collided with each other. Lin Hao felt like he was already starting to win. Then the crocodile went completely crazy in this fight. Lin Hao said that he would take advantage of his weakness and finish him off, then use the fire claw. Then Lin Hao attacked him again. The boy didn't understand why the crocodile had such thick skin. Sooner or later he will break through his defense as long as he continues to attack. Let him see his style, a whirlwind of corrosive claws. The crocodile easily regained his strength with the help of his hands. Lin Hao didn't understand how he could be so fast with such defense. After that, Lin Hao simply fell down. He realized that if he couldn't break through it with his hands, all that was left was his teeth. But the crocodile easily threw it back. The crocodile approached him and was ready to eat him. Lin Hao decided to use the mysterious iron-spiked scale directly into the crocodile's mouth. It really helped, and Lin Hao escaped from his mouth. Lin Hao asked if the crocodile thought he was a simple shellfish if he didn't extend his claws. Right after that, the guy used Superberg mode and said that he would tear him apart. The crocodile didn't even have time to see where Lin Hao had gone, and Lin Hao was already below him. Then he bit him again. The crocodile immediately used blue fire. The main character said that he has his own fire, so he shouldn't be afraid of it. But at that moment the main character fell to the ground. But he still found the strength to rise again. The main character started attacking him very quickly. It actually paid off. He literally made a hole in the crocodile's belly. The protagonist continued to attack. He told the crocodile to stop fighting. Beru said that he was destined to fall by his hand. At this moment, the main character was looking straight at the hole he had made. The main character was holding in his hand and eating, apparently, a crocodile's heart. He said it smelled terrible, but it was still too harsh for his teeth. He needed to sharpen his teeth. The main character could not understand what sound he heard. The guy asked who was there. The man said that the news update happened so quickly, of course, because this is a special worldwide network, open to all countries, accessible only to warriors who have merged with the virus. As soon as the mutant enters the global ranking, many will be interested in this creature. Even the L organization is no exception. The girl said that this mutant is friendly. He can't be killed immediately. Let him carry out the order. Let them notice Lake Hualin. If they don't act quickly, the guy is in danger. The man said that he would now report everything to his superiors. At that moment the captain dialed and he was very surprised by this call. He said that the mutant was discovered on the top of Mount Longshan. He seems serious about this thing being that powerful or something. They are not sure yet, he only managed to see his paw. The problem is that this photo was taken by a civilian and is posted publicly on the internet. People will start to panic, that's natural. The man asked him if they couldn't blame it all on some special effects. The captain said that recently there have been rumors that the Temple of the Dragon King is very spiritual. Many come there to pray. At that moment, countless people saw a mutant in the backwater, and it never disappeared. Why cover it up at all? The effect of the virus will start to spread sooner or later. The whole world will mutate. They can't hide it forever, so he means to say that the truth needs to be revealed. They will give them time to get used to it, he thinks. Then they will find out everything themselves. The girl thought about the words, about how they would find out everything themselves, and this mutated entity would finally be made public. If it has such a huge paw, then this creature is probably more than 30 meters in length. They were very scared. Was this some kind of joke or something? The evolution of the protagonist was completed at this point. He said it was not bad. I felt like my body had become stronger, but unfortunately he had not yet turned into an insect. They congratulate him. He has reached level 40 and receives a purple treasure chest. The main character decided that he would open the chest first. The chest opened at that moment. The minimum was purple, but he's hoping for gold. He lost his corrosion fangs, sharp fangs that leave rust when they bite. Immediately after this, something started happening to the main character in his mouth. The main character lost all his teeth. He was wondering if the fangs were corroded. His whole mouth would be covered in rust. The main character has new teeth. They were so sharp, as if he himself would have infected the crocodile with bloody fire before. The system asked if his combat strength had increased. He replied that it was only 100 points. It seemed like he couldn't go any higher at level 40. He needed to reach at least 50. The main character realized that he needs to stop thinking. He starts evolving again. The changes are still not that great. At that moment, someone started shouting about the phone. The main character saw a person's phone fall right towards him. The phone flew past him. The protagonist saw that they had photographed the transformation on Longchamp. During the last evolution, a foot broke through the mountain and many people saw it. Probably this creature is hiding inside the mountain. The main character can become this knight. He will go and check everything himself. Night fell, the main character went to check. If something like this exists, what is it anyway? He said something about data overload. The main character realized that it was not that at all. He immediately set off after the falling object. At that moment, the main character was rushing past some car. The guy couldn't understand. It was a group of dragons. The main character began to watch them. According to the latest information, the spaceship will land somewhere nearby. The organization ordered the state of their arrival. The girl said that of course the fourth in strength, imaginably powerful. The guy realized that this is not a group of dragons. This is the organization L. Isn't this the same guy who tried to finish him off, but now he has him in his hands? At that moment, some ship arrived to them. The main character realized that it was an alien. The man said that they had moved away and he would take over the negotiations. He greeted the master on Earth. He was sent by the L organization to meet them. He said they were people, found ruins in this city or something. The man said that there were some confirmed ruins here, and that huge mutated creatures were discovered opposite Mount Lun. The protagonist understood what it meant that the last time the mutated creatures were missed, and the cooperation of the aliens with the alien organization. However, they are going to conquer the Earth on the battlefield. The alien told them to take him there after he destroyed the ship. The man said that it was possible, but he felt sorry for the spaceship. So she can't eliminate the inventions. The main character pounced on them immediately. The main character and the alien began to fight. The alien emerged and immediately began to attack him, deciding that this would be the decisive moment. However, the main character didn't care at all. None of the alien's attacks had any effect on him, as if he was impenetrable. The alien then pulled out his weapon, clearly relying on its power to stop the enemy. He began swinging his weapon at incredible speed, trying to catch the protagonist, but he was ready. Lin Hao easily pushed him back without even bothering to put in any effort. The alien was helpless and could do nothing in response to such a quick reaction. The man stood there, stunned, not understanding what was happening or how this operation to seal the lake was connected to what was happening right now. The alien received information that the dragon had a fighting strength of 1,245, and he was amazed, not believing that this was possible. The protagonist asked ironically whether the alien had time to be distracted by such trifles when he needed to concentrate on the fight. The alien replied that he had not overestimated himself and would not stray from the path. Lin Hao wasted no time in deciding to use the flames against him, confident that it would give him an advantage. The alien, looking at the fireball, responded with confidence that such a ball would not harm him, because he was ready for anything. After that, he attacked him suddenly and with incredible speed. This really surprised the main character. He didn't expect that the alien would be able to attack so quickly. The alien was also surprised by something, not understanding how his attack could not work on the enemy. Then he jumped back, realizing he needed to change strategy. He didn't understand why this mutant had such hard and durable skin, making him almost invulnerable. This was supposed to wake him up, and as it turned out, it worked pretty well, although not the first time. The alien used the Battle Lady mode of immeasurable power, believing that it would help him win. He began to approach the main character, preparing for the decisive step. The protagonist noticed that the enemy's strength and speed had increased significantly, which came as a surprise to him and made him wary. Lin Hao decided to use some powerful skill to counter the enemy's new abilities. The alien, not understanding what was happening, was puzzled and could not immediately determine what kind of force it was. Lin Hao wasted no time in continuing to fight, not allowing the alien to retreat. The alien tried his best to respond to the attacks, but his attempts were not very successful. Lin Hao used his strength to knock the weapon out of the alien's hands, rendering him unable to continue fighting. The alien clearly did not expect this turn of events, and his expression became a mixture of surprise and confusion. Lin Hao, calmly observing his state, asked what exactly he was trying to do in this situation. The alien was amazed that the dragon he was fighting was able to talk and ask questions. Lin Hao repeated his question, insisting that the alien finally answer him. The alien explained that he had come to Earth to improve his master's hunting grounds, but that did not seem so important to him. The alien realized that Lin Hao had hit the mark. Everything he had said was correct. In response, the alien asked with displeasure, "So what if what Lin Hao said didn't matter, as if it didn't change anything?" Lin Hao calmly continued the conversation, reminding them that sooner or later their lower beings would still be caught. When Lin Hao asked the alien again what he was doing, the alien became nervous. The alien, hoping for forgiveness, began to ask Lin Hao to let him go, promising to help him evolve, but his requests did not make an impression. Lin Hao, with interest and a slight mockery, asked which of them was now the inferior being in this situation. Lin Hao did not hesitate to finish it all off, taking the alien's life, his body not remaining intact. There was no trace left of the alien. Everything disappeared, as if he had never existed. Lin Hao thought and said that eating his organs was certainly not the most pleasant thing. But evolution points were evolution points, and that was important. He received 200,000 evolution points and a purple chest, which he thought was pretty good. Lin Hao decided to open the chest to find out what was inside, hoping for something useful. He asked people if they were trying to escape, because he didn't think they were likely to succeed. Without wasting any time, Lin Hao roasted them all, getting rid of any unnecessary witnesses. Lin Hao said that he still had questions he wanted to ask them. He noticed the car slowly approaching him, and this caught his attention. Lin Hao grabbed a piece of the alien's armor, which turned out to be quite useful to him. Lin Hao said that he felt sorry, but they would probably still stay here. At least he now had combat armor. The car pulled up to the ship, and Lin Hao carefully surveyed the situation. Xiao pointed her finger and said that there should be a spaceship there, and this immediately caught her attention. After she got out of the car, the captain warned her to be careful, as the alien might still be inside. The girl replied that it looked like there was no alien here, and this calmed her down a little. The captain said with displeasure that these idiots always destroyed their ships when they arrived on Earth. And now, it was unclear to him where he could be. The ship's internal system had already been destroyed, and despite this, the control panel was still working. They were told that there was a control panel here, and this aroused everyone's interest. The captain, surprised by what was happening, said that he had never seen anything like this before, and did not know what to do in this situation. The girl inquired and asked if this was a kill button. If something remains intact, it means the ship's system may still be operational. She explained that the alien did not have time to press the button before it escaped, and this seemed unlikely. She said that the alien did not run away. He was attacked before he could leave the ship, and apparently it was a mutant and not just an ordinary alien. The tracks left by this creature indicated that it was quite massive, up to 10 to 20 meters in height. There were traces of fire all around, and if these weren't aliens, then the mutant could most likely breathe fire, leaving such destructive traces. Still, after they explored the area, it seemed that the alien had not gone anywhere, but remained nearby. The girl thought, trying to find an answer to what was happening. The soldier said that the people were most likely still alive and could be interrogated to find out what happened. The captain was delighted and said that they would take these people back to base to find out the details. The captain suggested hurrying, as it was necessary to take everything that was left and return to base as quickly as possible. The girl said that the size and golden flames on the alien's tracks looked familiar, and suggested that this was the creature they were looking for. She asked if the two from L's organization were left alive, since the ship was intact and the alien was nowhere to be seen. Everything was correct, and in that case, this creature really does help them. But judging by the previously received data, its size reached more than 13 meters, which made it extremely dangerous. So it was evolving, and that added new layers of uncertainty to their understanding of the situation. The captain thought it was simply impossible, and could not believe what was happening. This doesn't happen. Mutated creatures can't evolve. It clearly contradicts all known laws. The girl asked how this was impossible, because it was obvious that he was evolving before our eyes. It was impossible not to notice. At this point, the captain asked with obvious bewilderment what exactly was obvious in this case, trying to understand her point of view. He definitely helped her increase her original strength, and this could not be an accident. It confirmed his actions. She said something completely different, that he was obviously intelligent, and it was amazing that he was capable of such evolution. The matter of cultivating the original power was extremely important. It was necessary to find a way to confirm it in order to confirm his guesses. It was necessary to return to the organization and report what had happened to the management so that they could take the necessary measures and actions. The protagonist was congratulated on receiving the purple treasure chest and asked if he wanted to open it right now, without missing the opportunity. Of course, the main character immediately clicked on the option to open the chest, without thinking for a second. Lin Hao wanted to be given the pink chest, hoping for a more valuable gift. He felt something passive, but extremely acute, which sharpened all his senses, revealing invisible things that would be impossible to see with the naked eye. Lin Hao realized that the ability to sharpen his senses also had its advantages and could be useful in the future. He could now hear a leaf in the distance quietly falling to the ground, and it was so clear that his attention was constantly on the lookout for new details. It was as if eyes and ears had started growing all over his body, and now he no longer had to worry about possible ambushes. He could hear and see everything around him. At that moment, something confused him, and he was momentarily at a loss, not expecting such a reaction from the system. Lin Hao realized that the system notification sound was too loud, and it seemed that not everything was as perfect with this skill as it seemed at first glance. He had completed 8 out of 8 tasks, and it looked like it could have ended before 8. But the easy rewards were also good, and they had to be obtained. Lin Hao decided that he would first go to Longyan Reservoir, where the stone chaos awaited him, and he had to deal with it. At this time, in the reservoir itself, the atmosphere was tense, and everything that was happening seemed strange. Someone asked if it was too dangerous here at night, because strange things had always been on the edge in these places. It was an adventure streamer named Brother Lon who laughed and said that there was no need to be afraid, because all these water monsters were just a montage. Let the stream begin. His fans were eagerly awaiting the exploration of the reservoir. They thought he was right, that it was all just stories, and that he was just too timid, nothing special. He called his parents and said enthusiastically that today Brother Lon would show them the reservoir at night. Everything would be safe. Brother B, however, said that after he was attacked by water monsters here, he did not dare to return. But let the viewers like and subscribe, because today he will reveal the whole truth about this place. They headed to the shore, and he showed how people constantly come there, and what happens in these places. At this point, one of the guys asked what was in the distance, because he noticed something strange. He didn't understand what the hell a spaceship was there for. It was completely ridiculous. They didn't understand. Someone could just be kidding. But everything looked too serious not to worry. He threw a stone towards the ship and said loudly that they had to leave right now. Lin Hao, without wasting any time, easily broke the stone with his tail, showing his strength. After this, he appeared before them as something invisible, and they immediately felt his presence. The streamer started screaming that it was a monster, and the whole situation got out of control. People started writing in the chat that a water monster had appeared. But why did the camera stop working? Is he okay, or what? What happened there? With the sound as if there were wild animals nearby. Lin Hao could understand where the spaceship came from, but it didn't matter to him. He was ready to act. Whatever happened, he would not allow anyone to enter his territory, because it belonged only to him. He will constantly improve until he destroys all who dare to threaten his world. At this time, at headquarters, where they were discussing what had happened, the situation became increasingly tense. The old man asked what kind of spaceship it was that appeared at night in the Longyan Reservoir. The situation was becoming more critical every day, but their forces were not getting stronger, which made everyone worry. Then someone knocked on the door and everyone turned around, waiting to see who it was. It was Jue who informed Mr. Zhang that she had come on a very important matter concerning cultivation and primordial power. The man asked if she had found a way, and she replied that she only had an idea for now, but it could help them solve the problem. That was great. He said let her tell him, and then they would decide whether it was feasible or not. She just wanted to work on the front lines and help resolve the crisis in the country as quickly as possible. She was sure that Lin Hao would agree to this, since he always accepted such challenges. She suggested that they meet him mentally on the battlefield to discuss further actions.